East Hampton Town Board, we are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the East Hampton Town Board work session of Tuesday, May 6, 2025. Carol, if you could please read the roll call.
Present.
Elise.
Present.
Councilmember Rogers.
Present.
Councilmember Calder Piedmont.
Present.
Supervisor Burke Gonzalez.
Present. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So this morning, we'll start with public comment, and we'll ask you to please kindly keep your comments to 3 minutes. And then we've got 4 topics that are going to be discussed. The first is the Peach House renovation, and we've got our engineer from McLean, Matt Jedlicka, to make that presentation. Then our planning director, Tina Lagaren, will do a update on outdoor dining extension, followed by the Public Safety 2024 accomplishments and 2025 goals. This is a series we started back in February, and we're going to hear from Tim Treadwell from Marine Patrol, David Brown from the Fire Marshal's Office, and Marty Culleton from our Ordinance Enforcement Office. And that will be followed by a presentation by Scott Wilson and John Jilnicki about amendments to Chapter 182, Nature Preserved. Then we will have liaison reports, and you'll hear from the board members, and then we will go on to resolutions. So we'll start with public portion. Carol, has anyone signed up to speak? No. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board? Jason, is there anyone on the line?
Yes, I have one caller on the line. I'll unmute them right
Great.
now.
Thank you.
Hello, caller, ending 3244. You're on the air. Hello.
Thank you and good morning. Hi, my name is Martin Drew from Springs in Rincon, Puerto Rico. Good morning to you folks. I would like to address the situation at Maidstone Acres in Springs, also known as Rita Cantina. It seems that for the past 4 years, under the ownership of Richard Girardi, we have many problems down there, and it seems we're having a difficult time having the law be the law by not following through on our codes and expectations of due process. So apparently those folks down there are out of, compliance for maybe months now from the planning board when they gave them a directive to get their situation squared up in a CO, together. And we're realizing that there is no CO of the moment in that property. We're concerned about the outdoor dining issues and the septic tanks that they sit over that are apparently off gas and cause a nauseating fume to anyone who might be experiencing that outdoor dining. And the reality is the big problem down there is the parking. So let's just get to the gorilla in the room. The parking is the big problem down there. There's parking illegally across the street from the facility, encumbering the right-of-ways. And when I did a little research, and you guys know I love to do my research so I can speak from facts and not my personal opinion, the deed that was given from the Gallatin family to the town says here's the thing. The road goes all the way out to 3 Mile Harbor Road, which was on a controlled access point in the deed years and years ago. And it's probably the largest flag lot in the town of East Hampton because you have the road name incorrect. It's not Flag Eagle Road. It's Maidstone Park Road from 3 Mile Harbor Road to the access park. And the deed tells us you're able to access that park by foot or vehicle unobstructed. So the parking situation in the right-of-way that's creating all these pedestrian and traffic hazards is illegal. New York state law would tell us you don't park perpendicular. You could authorize angle parking, but that would have to be on the other side of the street in front of the actual facility. The property across the street is a vacant residential lot. They've encumbered it by creating some de facto parking lot. And in 1969, when this was all relevant of that era, somebody had complained about that parking across the street, and let's just be real, it wouldn't be me because I would have been 3 years old at that time. So we're hoping that the police can finally encourage the town board to get the striping correct, because when I talk to the chief of police, he tells me he can't enforce the parking issues down there because we don't have any proper striping and issues like that. So it would be incumbent upon maybe the highway superintendent to address that situation and bring it to your board and correct that situation so that we could have enforceable parking tickets written and go from there. So as of present, they also have no certificate of occupancy to speak to, which would require that to be in effect for them to even consider any outdoor dining at this point. And then apparently we have 30 outstanding violations that have been written years ago, but apparently everyone wants to tell us they can't do nothing about it because we're tied up in this Article 78 lawsuit. And the reality of that is the lawsuit is under one party's name, and the outstanding violations are under another party's name, the owner's name, or DNR Realty, as I know it. So we are confused on why the outstanding violations haven't been adjudicated, and we're wondering why we keep getting these excuses that the Article 78 takes precedent over all things, where that Article 78 is based in, I guess, their desire to run 3 businesses at that location. Legally, they don't even have enough parking for 1 restaurant use, let alone 3 other restaurant uses where they want to cry that they can't cater from that facility. So we stand with Ann Glennon's decision years ago that said they're not able to do that. So the reality is we applaud her for that decision and taking a leadership role in that capacity, but this lawsuit seems to be encumbering our ability to see these other outstanding violations corrected. So we're asking, and while I'm at it, I would like to thank Councilman Piedmont for always taking my call. You folks could learn a lot from that gentleman for at least hearing what your constituents have to say. We can both attest to the fact that it always wasn't a pleasant dialogue because we were trying to hash out some facts that he wasn't aware of. So thank you, Mr. Piedmont, for at least hearing me and hearing me out as one of your constituents. We appreciate that in itself. So we're hoping you can lobby your town board to correct these situations in Springs by first addressing the parking issues. My mother, Hella Drew, has been working real hard at this behind the scenes, and she would like to tell you that there's a precedent in our area about no parking on either side of the road to these access beaches. So we're wondering why this is just so vagrantly allowed to continue with no law enforcement. And to be reminded, I called the New York State Troopers, and they tell me the New York State parking law is such. You park parallel in a 2-way road with 2 wheels off the road, and that's that. If the town board wants to authorize angle parking on the other side, you're authorized to do that. So we'd like you guys to start doing your jobs and finally let us know that the law is the law and it has some recourse when you apply it correctly. So can you tell us what you're going to do about this and what status we're at now and how you're going to handle this?
Martin, thank you for your comments today. We'll have Ian get back to you.
Oh, that was a question, Supervisor. That wasn't a blow me off kind of statement. I'm asking a direct question. What is your board doing about all these legal deficiencies, and when will the law become the law and we stand with the law? That's our question.
Okay. Martin, this is public comment. We don't get into a public discussion and debate, and we will answer you offline, and we appreciate you calling in today. Thank you. Jason, is there anyone else on the line?
Yes, we have one more caller on the line. Caller ending 0709. You're on the air. Sorry, that was 0790, but they just hung up as well. Oh, wait, they are... Nope. Okay. The previous caller is calling back, but aside from that, there are no other new callers.
Okay, great. All right, so we're going to move on to topics. And first up is the Peach House renovation. So, Matt, welcome.
I'm going to run my own slides here.
Okay.
Okay, can you guys see that?
Not yet.
Not yet. You have to hit share screen.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. And you got it.
Perfect. All right.
And you can see it over there. It's on that screen as well. Yes.
Good morning,
Thank you.
Supervisor and town board members. My name is Matt Jedlicka.
Matt, can you just bring the microphone closer to you?
My name is Matt Jedlicka. I'm a principal at LK McLean Associates, engineers for the town. So I'm here to discuss the Peach Farmhouse rehabilitation. For those that don't know, it's the small residence that's across the way here. The plan is an adaptive reuse of the building. It's a historic structure. We want to repurpose it for something other than what it's originally designed for, which was a residence. That way it can remain functional and extend its useful life. We want to preserve the distinctive materials or features and avoid making any sort of major changes to the historic structure. I have to apologize, I do not know who painted this painting, but it was something that we obtained from the East Hampton Library. All right, so I am also not a historian, so I'm going to do my best at this. So the Northwest Woods was originally settled by Isaac Van Scoy, and he built a house north of the Peach Farmhouse around 1757, or at least that's, what we could determine. So in 1796, Deering Ranger, who was the son of Samuel Ranger, married Isaac's youngest daughter, Polly, or better known as Mary Van Scoy. So that's the connection between the Van Scoy family and the Ranger family. So the Rangers built the house, the Peach Farmhouse, sometime in the late 1700s or very early 1800s. If you do research on like the historic newspapers, there's things that say 1730s, there's things that say 1790s. 1730s is not likely because the Van Scoy family, the first house up there was 1757. So in speaking with Bob Hefner, I think the timeline is very late 1700s, early 1800s, but that's when that house was built. The house remained in the Ranger family for almost 100 years. There's a little cemetery up on Northwest Woods, the Ranger family cemetery. So that's where the Peach Farmhouse, it was, just to the east of there. So in 1894, John White Hand purchased the house from the Ranger family. And in 1896, John started planting peach trees, and that's where the name the Peach Farmhouse came from. Historic articles in East Hampton Star, from the late 1800s talked about the excellent peaches that they grew at the peach farm. So I guess the name stuck. It's kind of interesting. In 1918, Salvatore Christione and a bunch of other investors, you could call it, purchased the house. And then Salvatore purchased everybody else. He purchased the home from the rest of the investors. And in 1930, the sheriff found the largest still on Long Island at the house.
Should rename it.
So, yeah. So this is a map from 1858. Jacob Chance, who was a surveyor and a map maker. These were some of the earliest comprehensive county level maps. And this shows the Ranger homestead, where it stood. And then in 1916, these are the E. Belcher Hyde maps, which were kind of like I think a fire insurance type map that they were producing. This now shows the location, and it shows it as the John Hand House, which is, the Peach Farmhouse. Okay, so this is how it currently looks. It's sitting on the town hall campus site. It was moved to this site in 2007, along with the rest of the buildings. At that point in time, a new foundation had been constructed, a new sanitary system had been installed, the building was set on the new foundation, and it was ready for rehabilitation along with all the other buildings. But for whatever reason, that building stayed the way it is now. So one thing I want to point out is that when Adelaide DeManil and Edward Carpenter had obtained the houses. I think they bought this house in 1973 or 74 and moved it to their Further Lane property. At that point in time, Edmund Carpenter basically deconstructed the house and reconstructed the house. When it was still up in the Northwest Woods, there are articles in East Hampton Star talking about how the doors had been removed, the windows had been removed. So a lot of the historic fabric from the early 1800s or late 1700s is not necessarily there. And we're not sure, exactly with Edmund's reconstruction, maybe the windows were historic windows that he had collected from somewhere else, but they're not the windows that were in the original Peach farmhouse, because at the time that they purchased it in the early 70s, there were no windows in the house. The plaster, it was replastered by him. The fireplace was reconstructed. So our plan is to...
Can I ask you, Matt, do you know how did they use the house when it was, reconstructed on Further Lane? Do we know what the Adelaide and Edmund?
I'm not really sure what they were doing with it. If they had anybody, if they had anybody living in it,
Right.
I'm not sure.
I think we have an assignment for our town historian. Dig in a little bit more.
There you go. Okay, so the plan that we're putting together is a rehabilitation of the existing structure, how it sits right now. The general idea is to make it similar to these structures or to the Baker house, where Scott Wilson resides.
Mm-hmm.
So the general idea is to, rehabilitate the whole thing so that it allows space for 3 relatively private office spaces and a reception area. We're going to provide ADA access, an ADA accessible bathroom, code compliance on the first floor. So the western portion, which is better known as the garden shed, was not original to the house. It was something that got added on. It's also historic, but it's not, the original addition that was on the house. So this garden shed portion has had enough deterioration that portion really needs to get rebuilt, and not just a rehab, but the plan is to reconstruct that using as much of the historic fabric as we can save, but basically a reconstruction of that. And that's where the ADA entrance will be. That's where the reception area will be, and that's where the ADA restroom will be. So the overall reconstruction, but specifically on the outside, it includes restoration of the windows that are there, including adding storm windows for energy efficiency, restoration of the doors that are there, reshingling the entire structure. The structures were reshingled by Mr. Carpenter and Ms. DeManil in 1975 or 76. There's also an article in the East Hampton Star around that time that showed cedar shingles being hand split in Amagansett because they needed very specific type of shingles. And so those shingles in 1975 and 76, there's photographs of them being put on the house. So it was reshingled in the 70s, but it needs to be reshingled again during these renovations. The landscaping is going to be minimal around the perimeter. There will be on the north elevation up against the parking lot, there will be a small screened area with a historic replica type fence screen, and that's where the HVAC area will be, because there's an alcove at that location. So the progress to date, We've been in the house numerous times. We've evaluated it a number of times. We've had the original structural engineers that were involved in this entire town hall campus with us in some of the investigations. We've measured and documented the existing structure. And at this point in time, we've developed not only like schematic level plans and then design development type plans, but we're probably about 80% done with the plans and technical specifications. Upcoming, the reason for us being at 80% is we've already set bid dates of having this available for contractors on June 5th of this year, with a bid opening on July 10th of this year. At that point in time, we'll go through the permitting phases, and then the general idea would be permitting and contracts, and then being able to start the project in September 2025 with the goal of completing the project by, say, May 2026. It shouldn't take that long, but that's, that's the end goal. And that's about it. If anybody has any sort of questions, comments.
I do have one question with regards to the bathroom. So the plumbing for the septic line is already plumbed into the main building system, or how's that going to work?
So there is an existing unused sanitary system that was installed at the time of the town hall complex construction. The plan is that, so underneath in the crawl space, there's no existing plumbing. They basically picked up the house from further lane, moved the house here, and set the house down. So there's no electric to the building itself. There's no plumbing. There's a water line that runs right next to it. So the plan is to tap into that water line, bring in a water service to run sanitary piping within the structure, core drill out through the foundation, and get out to the existing sanitary system. We're on a new electric service over to the building and, rewire everything, because there's wiring from when the Demonells had it on their property, but all that wiring has to be redone.
And the plumbing system will include kind of being hooked into a sprinkler system as well, I assume?
Into a fire
system,
suppression system?
Yeah, fire suppression, sorry, yes.
So no, there's no plan for a fire suppression system. It's as far as the code and the size and occupancy and the code requirement for a fire suppression system, it's below those thresholds. The fire suppression system is not necessarily to preserve a historic artifact. It's for life safety, to allow people to, get out of a structure. Buzzy is here, so he could speak to it, but you're going to have an occupancy of 4 people, and it's, a very small structure. So by code, it's not required. And we didn't include that because of the cost, and just felt that, there was no reason to include that.
Thank you.
So I've been fortunate enough to be in the building in the past. I think the one thing, the adaptive reuse is appropriate, and that we're finally here. I think we have to thank, first of all, Mrs. DeMonell and Mr. Carpentier. I know Adelaide visited us here maybe about 2 years ago. She saw the buildings, how they've been repurposed and are now being used and alive. She was extremely happy when she visited. She had memories here. I think she was with Mr. Eames at the time,
Okay.
who was a close family friend. She remembered accounts of parties in here, or sheep, I believe, in here, when they used to have gatherings or dinners and stuff. And it was great to listen to a person that thought so much about historical preservation so long before it was in vogue, maybe, and to a way that she used it for her own life. As you see in a lot of these pictures, I think that's the Peach House right there, coming back to life on there, and too, and or being deconstructed on the property. So I think it's right for the town to move forward on this. We'll use our energy efficiency aspects of it with the windows. We'll do it also with, I believe we're having a heat pump in there. Is that correct?
All electric heat pumps,
Correct.
fully insulated. the windows with the storm windows, you know.
Yep. And
We're not removing the windows, but we're going to rebuild them.
it's better than using salt hay. That's probably what
Right.
you'll see when we in there. There's very wide planks still in there. The mantelpieces are there. So there's many of those touches I look forward to seeing coming back. A little bit about the Peach Farm in general up there, the Ranger Cemetery that is there, and the Van Scoy Cemetery are cemeteries that this board has supported restoration of in that area of Northwest, which is one of the areas that the town was founded in. And two, Isaac Van Scoy was actually a patriot, which means he fought in the American Revolution also then too. So I support this, and I thank the supervisor for bringing this forward and making sure there was funding to do this, because I think it's an appropriate thing for the town board to finally do. So thank you, supervisor.
Actually, something interesting about the Ranger Cemetery. I was up there this morning just checking it out. And just on the south side of that cemetery is a lop tree.
Yeah.
And way back when they used to use lop trees to delineate boundaries and things like that. And I just found it fascinating that the tree was right there almost at the corner of the cemetery.
I have a lop tree in my backyard. My brother-in-law was an arborist. They cleared the lot. And when they see a lop tree, I don't know if you all know lop trees, you take a tree, you bend it over, and that was a survey stake at the time, and it's right in line.
Yep.
And him as an individual that cleared lots, they do not remove lop trees because they are the survey stakes from hundreds of years ago,
Right.
and that's
should be
neat to find.
protected,
You'll see
actually.
a lot of them on.
Yeah.
See if I can keep going on this. I don't know, sidebar. Anyway, I support this. I look forward to seeing it, and I thank you, Supervisor, for moving this forward.
Any other comments?
No,
questions?
it's after, I'm sure we all experienced walking by it for such a long time and seeing it being utilized and put back into a use is really good news. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm supportive as well. Thank you, Matt, for the presentation. It's exciting. It's nice to learn some history that I didn't know. And thank you, David, for not making me have to ask what a lop tree was.
And Change Hampton, I also want to thank them for understanding as they developed the initiatives in collaboration with the town
Bless you.
about town hall campus, is that when they were maybe a little disappointed that we left that area out of a potential use, because we knew that this was a project that was forthcoming also. So I want to thank them for their flexibility and understanding that too.
Right. And we actually need the space. You know, for those of us that work in town hall and, work even 300 Panago, we know we're pressed for space here and for staff. Town hall has basically 2 conference rooms, this room and downstairs, a small conference room in the attorney's office. So we're looking for ways that we can expand, and we've had preliminary conversations about what office would make sense to be put in, to be relocated into the space. And our first go round is the Human Resources Department. It may make more sense. It would give them privacy when folks come and want to have conversations about whether it's about their retirement or being onboarded, or they want to have a discussion about, their work environments. So this would give us the ability, and I think in particular, the larger office could probably fit 2 staff members. So if we needed to, and have it more as an open office. So I think that this is something that will be welcomed, because we are pretty cramped here.
And with that discussion, potentially what we want to make sure is that there's enough electrical inputs
Yes, of
for
course.
multiple desk placements in that room then.
Flex spaces, yeah.
Mhm.
So just for folks' information, if you're thinking, why don't you just add on to the town hall if you need more space? The donation of these lovely structures steeped in history also came with easements that said you cannot alter them. So any additional space that we need, and we're not ignoring it, there's no ability to attach on to the existing structures.
Well, Matt, thank you for making the trip out.
Of course.
And so we will have the bid available. We'll be, I guess, voting on that to put it out on Thursday, June 5th.
5th, yes.
Terrific. Okay, so next up, we have Tina Lagoren to talk to us about the outdoor dining extension. Welcome, Tina.
Thank you, Supervisor. Hello, Deputy Supervisor, town board members. Thank you for having me today to talk about the administrative outdoor dining permits program extension. The planning department is recommending that the town board extend the administrative outdoor dining program through December 31st, 2028 for an additional about 2.5 years. To define what the program is quickly, the administrative outdoor dining permit, when granted, allows a legally existing restaurant or takeout food store to relocate a quantity of their indoor seats to outdoor space in accordance with code criteria. It does not permit expansions or additions to the number of seats, only transfers of the locations. The permit must be reapplied for and reissued each year, and the program has been in effect in some form since 2021. It's a simple application process, a short form, and a few technical requirements, and the planning department administers the permit for the town. We're asking for the extension for the following reasons. First, the extension will allow for analysis of the current code with the goal of creating a permanent program for this administrative permit. I believe the businesses and town staff have been amenable to the program. I've not heard the desire to cancel it as of yet. So this extension will give us time to develop recommendations to make the program permanent in the code. A little background, there are currently 2 sections of town code that deal with this program, 255-1188, outdoor dining at restaurants and takeout food stores, and 255-538, which was the pilot program for the transfer of indoor dining use to outdoor special permit space. They're both expired. The 2 code sections generally agree on substance and requirements, but there are some inconsistencies, and we'd like this time to ensure that we're able to crosswalk the 2 code sections and make sure that we're capturing the best code for the permanent recommendations. If the extension's authorized by the board, we would like to extend 255-1188 only. We discussed this with the town attorney, and they advised they're comfortable allowing the other provision to remain expired. And we do rely more heavily on 255-1188, and all of our code requirements now are consistent with what's in there. I mean, our application form requirements are consistent with what's there. If the board's amenable, the proposed extension gives the planning department the time to develop the permanent code amendments and present them to the town board in the coming months and year for your review and comments. Our plan would be to update the code to have the standards exist in one section, right, a best practice, of course. And importantly, will allow the program to continue as is, status quo, while the amendments are considered. If, however, upon review of the recommendations, the board does not want to continue the program, this 3-year extension will still allow locations utilizing the administrative permit to be advised of that and to have time to plan accordingly, which they can gain approval for site plan if they so choose. So that's really the second reason we asked for a lengthy extension. We wanted the time to develop the code changes, but if folks decide we don't want to continue this in the town, we want to make sure we advise the businesses who utilize it so they've got options. Again, I haven't heard that we want to cancel it, but just in case. Many restaurants do have outdoor dining permanently on their site plan, and they can always apply to the planning board should they want to pursue that option instead of reapplying for the administrative permit yearly. I do just want to emphasize again that this has been a fairly simple program to run. It's a simple application process, minimal form and technical requirements. And in recommending the changes to the code, we would aim to maintain that simplicity and ensure that, the process is streamlined and efficient. To give a sense of scale, it's not a huge program. It's utilized in 2024, there were 10 locations that applied. In 2023, there were 9. And we have not received many renewal applications this year, and I want to encourage establishments, and we'll put the word out, who want to continue to utilize the outdoor dining to make sure they get their renewals in so we can start looking at and processing them. So to conclude, just to emphasize, extending the program doesn't change the substance of what's happening right now. It only changes the date of the expiration of the permit. So thank you for your time, and happy to discuss any questions.
I just want to support the extension. Excuse me. Thanks. I want to support the extension and also looking at the code revisions. As I recall, when this pilot program, we called it a pilot program in the past. And so I just want to emphasize it doesn't call for or allow for additional occupancy on the commercial property, the restaurants or the takeout. It only allows the transfer of seats from one location, which would be inside, to another location outside. And also, I believe there are requirements for lighting and other guardrails to keep it low-key and not obtrusive to neighboring properties. So I think that this has been a successful program, and I'm in favor of it, the extension, and also looking at it, the code changes as well.
My only slight concern with this is just, we hear from a lot of residents and actually even some business owners and restaurants themselves about the amount of litter out there right now. And certainly, like, the more mobile food becomes, the more the associated packaging becomes disposable and kind of gets dropped accidentally, and it happens across a lot of different businesses. But, like, is there scope to ask business owners that, if you are going to have outdoor dining or seating, that you either are reusing the items yourself or they are biodegradable in some form, such that we're avoiding just creating unnecessary trash that's either going to end up in the waterways or in landfill somewhere. I just think that would be a nice option if we are going to kind of really help encourage outdoor eating.
So we do have that, actually, Tom, in another section of the code that has to do with mandatory cans for the code. And we're also the Litter Action Committee is also going to come back with a recommendation to tweak that a little bit. Right now, I believe the can can be inside or outside. We're going to ask that they're outside to make it more amenable, but we haven't discussed biodegradable products.
But Tina, this code is for restaurants, right? It's not for takeout.
It applies
Or
to both.
it applies to both.
Yes, because the takeout, they get 16 seats per the
Right.
Suffolk County
Okay.
regulations, so those can be inside or outside under this.
So it's not all table service. It's table service and self-service.
Yes, it could be. For the restaurants, though, mostly it is seated service with, reusable, like, plates that they'll put in the dishwasher after. It's not like a to-go type thing, but for the takeout, Tom's point could be. We certainly could. We issue a cover letter in all of the permits that we send. We could put a statement in there reminding businesses to please be cognizant of litter. I think that's a good message, and we all could support. We want cleanly, so I wouldn't mind doing that. And as part of the code revision, I think we'll look to the other sections of code and maybe just reference the requirements that the town has created within those to make sure people are aware that they're, they have to be responsible for those issues.
Yeah, there's general requirements that property owners of commercial properties, they are meant to keep their parking lots.
Chapter 167-4, it's actually parts of the town code in which is quasi-public spaces in which the storefronts have to take care of the quasi-public space in front of their establishments. That's in the code already.
Including their parking lots?
That's correct.
Yep.
I know we've worked well with Martin, who's going to be up here shortly, the other chambers, outreach to businesses about that. But that is a consistent thing that I think Kate and Tom are both working on, and I agree with. So sorry, I had it because we just discussed this last night in the back.
No, I'm glad you had the section number.
I wrote that down.
So
too.
yeah, so there are Tina, just shorthand, there are sections of the code that dictate what businesses are to do about litter that's generated, whether it's blown on or whether they generate it on their property, and also the placement of refuse cans.
Right.
So,
And sorry. go on.
so I was on the board during COVID. A lot of this came out of COVID. There's a lot of negatives out of COVID. This was one of the positives.
Silver lining.
I believe so. Zoom was maybe another one also. My loss of hair. Even more so, not so much. Or gray hairs. My wife likes gray hair. Anyway, whatever.
Stop talking.
I know. Move on, Dave. I think outdoor dining is wonderful when it's done in appropriate locations. There were discussions at that time when it was allowed initially, but also the town looked at it and make sure that it could only happen in certain areas and maybe pre-existing non-conforming locations back in against residences other than two. From what I've heard it's pretty minor, but there's been good gains to allowing that for businesses and to individuals that like dining outside. Personally, I do also. So yes, I support everything you just recommended, Tina. I thank you for taking that and looking at that as far as the extension, but also where to put it potentially permanently and give it enough time for them to do so. I do know that if it's outdoor dining in the state municipal right of way, that's a different permit that those individuals have to go look at also. But as far as the town's aspect of it, I think it's something that's been successful, and I will agree with your recommendations how to move forward.
Thank you. And we did a deep dive about the Montauk Highway outdoor dining a while ago, and there's information on our website if businesses have frontage on Montauk Highway about how to get approval from the state to seat people in the right of way. It's much more straightforward if it's just local roadway, obviously.
Yeah, that's nice to hear because it wasn't straightforward during COVID as much.
Yeah, it would be a difficult process based on our coordination with them.
And I understand we have it noticed for public hearing in today's resolution so that we can get this, if the board is amenable to get this authorized for this coming season. So, right.
I'm supportive.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tina.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, next up, we have the public safety. Gentlemen are going to be here to talk about their 2024 accomplishments and 2025 goals. So first up is Tim Treadwell from Marine Patrol. Tina, could you ask, oh, here comes Patrick, because he's going to run the PowerPoint for you, Tim.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tim.
Thank you for having me. So I'll start with this. In my career on the Marine Patrol with the town, going on 20 years, I've noticed most recently just a great collaboration between the board, the town departments, the town attorney's office, and really our accomplishments from last year and my goals and objectives going forward really are, related to that, that collaboration, and it's really been great. And I've never seen the extent of that collaboration prior to the last few years. So that makes me very happy and makes my goals and objectives that much easier. So thank you for all your support with everything. So our mission statement on the Marine Patrol is we enforce waterways and water-related regulations and secure the public safety on the waterways. So we have both a law enforcement capacity as well as a search and rescue capacity. We spend a lot of our time enforcing rules and regulations, but we also try to be hospitable with the public and also just inform. We don't always just write tickets. So I do believe that we provided effective, that's the key word there, law enforcement, particularly focusing on safety, education, compliance, and the protection of our valuable natural resources, which is both our waterways, all of our waterways, and our beaches. At night, we were able to hire, thanks to the board, a new full-time harbor master. That individual worked, the late shift. He was backed up by the police department, and we were able to really keep the patrols going late into the evening, more so than we have in prior years. So that was excellent. We had about 1,500 calls for service, and it cited over 1,000 violations. I have the stats on that, which I can get to in a little bit later. We did have 18, legitimate search and rescue cases where we got underway because someone was in distress. A lot of times we have what I call unfounded SAR cases. Somebody's not really in trouble, but we get underway, or there's a disabled vessel. But this was really, those were legitimate cases where we provided assistance. And then we 62 persons and 15 vessels. We did about 400 recreational boating safety compliance inspections. That was aided by the addition of the new patrol vessel, which we got last year, which is an excellent asset. And actually, upon receiving that vessel, that like within a week of that, I think we had 7 search and rescue cases with that vessel, you know, which was kind of just a weird coincidence, but it served us well. As far as goals going into 2025, reorganize the management oversight of the town's recreational docks, commercial docks, and moorings by utilizing the OpenGov system and modernizing the application and renewal process. So this has been just really, really, it's been a great process. Let me put it that way. So we were considering at one point bringing in some sort of DACWA software, some sort of slip and management software. It turns out that the OpenGov system can effectively handle it. We basically designed our own system, and I have to give IT and particularly Natania at IT a lot of credit for assisting me. And the trustees, Allison at the trustees, she assisted me as well. They have an online system, and this was the first year, so there were some glitches. As far as where people go to pay and where people go to pick up their mooring permits. But I think that since this was a transitional year going forward, now that everybody knows the system, it's going to be even more seamless. And it also, the thing I like about it too, is it also, helps the Marine Patrol interface with the boating public. And so we get to know the boating public, they get to know the Marine Patrol more. So I'm happy about that relationship. More training opportunities for full and part-time staff. That's in my budget. And so, we're always doing more training, whether it's with the East End Marine Law Enforcement Task Force or the Coast Guard, or we do, we train regularly with East Hampton Volunteer Ocean Rescue and the lifeguards. Sometimes we have multi-department drills where we also work with the fire departments. We have a few of those coming up this year also. We continue to do joint operations with the U.S. Coast Guard and the New York State DEC. We had a task force meeting last week, which was addressing some of the, potentially illegal charter operations that are going on, not so much in the fishing industry, but in the yacht industry, where people are using, bareboat charters. And it's really a federal thing, but we're trying to sort of understand, how we can assist and identify, if people are, there's a lot of operators now which are, renting boats, and whether it's a bareboat charter or an uninspected passenger vessel, I'm training my staff and through interaction with the Coast Guard Quorum's office that handles that, how to at least identify that. As you may know, there's a new law in the books now that everyone operating a power-driven vessel has to have a New York State boating safety certificate, unless you have a captain's license or another license. So I've taught 2 of those classes so far. I have 3 more to come, one specifically for the lifeguards and ocean rescue. And then I have one coming up in June at the Montauk Library and one at the Montauk Firehouse. So I've been getting a lot of communication about, and there's some confusion about who needs it and whether the commercial guys need it and all of that. So I've been working on trying to teach a lot of classes. And again, we work very effectively with the lifeguards, ocean rescue, the town attorney's office, code enforcement, and the trustees. Parks, buildings and grounds, when we have a problem on the beach, they're very good about assisting us if it's something we can't handle. And even the state, when if it's an issue that involves them, they're very receptive to cooperation with that kind of thing. And the trustees, of course. And so just a couple. So out of a total of almost 1,500 citations we wrote in 2024, and if I take out the parking, if we take out parking tickets, we issued about 660 in 2022. In 2023, it was around 470, and then this year we issued 950. So my guys were really out there on the job this year. So the top 10, in case you're interested, of what our violations are, was 228 no beach driving permit, 133 non-compliant beach fires. Yeah, Jake already knows how these stack up. And then it was a tie for third for over limit and undersized fish or failure to comply with posted regulations. The reason we had a lot of failure to comply with posted regulations is that's people fishing on the Navy pier at night. Obstructing beach access, which is also a beach driving violation. There's 52 of those. 47 dogs on beach during restricted hours. 45 no state marine fishing registry card. 36 camping on the beach. 25 insufficient safety equipment, and 20 speed on the waterways. Just a little preview of what kind of stuff we have out there. We also obviously enforce shellfish enforcement. This year, we did about 1,500 activity checks, meaning that my guys keep a record of when they go to a harbor where somebody might be shellfishing and check to see if there's anybody there. Out of those activity checks, we checked 413 permits and issued 132 shellfish violations. We had 2 boating accidents that we investigated. We did 52 special events and enforcement details and assisted other town agencies with those. I mentioned the 18 search and rescue calls, about 400 recreational boating safety compliance inspections. Those do include people on stand-up paddle boards as well. So basically our numbers are right in line with our overall for the year. We did about 2,000 in 2022, 1,900 in 23, and about 2,100 again in 24. So we're right on track stats wise. And again, I'm really mostly impressed by the great collaboration between everyone.
Anyone have questions for Tim?
No, just comments, Tim. I'd say thank you. I know certainly speaking to some of the charter operators, the licensed ones, how frustrated they get when they see the unlicensed ones out there operating. So I appreciate that you guys are out there doing that. And also, with beach fires, it is a huge risk, and actually getting down there and reminding people how to do it the right way and how not is so critical to our public safety. So thank you to your team for that as well.
Thank you.
Can we use that? Because my question was going to be, what do you want folks to know if they want to go down to the beach this summer and build a beach fire?
Figure out how to remove your fire debris from the beach, because you can have it compliant in the metal container and you can have the bucket of water, but it also has to be removed. Please don't dump it or just leave the can there, because then when the Parks Department is trying to clean the beach, they have to stop the beach rake. They have to remove the can, and it becomes problematic. Don't bury it. I mean, the goal is, as it always has been, to remove all your fire debris from the beach and return it to its natural state.
Carry in, carry out.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful.
So just a comment quickly, you mentioned the success with OpenGov, and I just want to also give a shout out to Tom for leading that effort, Tom Flight for leading that effort to get departments up on that, and there's more than Marine Patrol now and more to come, but I've only heard good things about it, and also a shout out to IT for helping everybody. I'm glad that you're reporting that it's beneficial to you.
Yeah. I got myself a mooring permit, and it took me, I believe it was 7 minutes on my iPhone. So
You're a good advertisement.
I'll take that for efficiency. I got mooring permit number 1 from the new system. I made sure that I got that one. No, I was also testing it too. Right?
That's important.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Any other comments? And I believe you're going to be back. We're going to have a 2025 beach season update next week.
That's correct. Yeah.
In
Tim will be here
Montauk?
Yes. We'll see you then.
All right,
Thank you.
beautiful. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have David Brown, AKA Buzzy, our Chief Fire Marshal. Welcome, Buzzy.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. All right, let's see. Let's talk about last year's goal. We'll start off with that, some of our goals. Our first goal for 24 was to increase enforcement of my nighttime checks. It's checking the bars and nightclubs, restaurants for fire safety, blocked exits, overcrowding, things like that. Our inspections, fortunately, we had new fire marshals added to our staff. This brought our inspections from 960 inspections up from 510 in 2022. This increase came during training for fire marshals, and for 2024, we were able to increase those numbers to 1,607 inspections, and exceeding our goal of 1,200 to 1,500 for the year. And we did this by doing multiple inspections of places on each night. What we find is some of the crowds will move around from place to place. We'll come into one place and it's like a speeding driver. You see a cop on the side of the road, you slow down. They see us fire marshals coming in, they slow down their crowds a little bit. And the crowds will move around from place to place. So the multiple inspections on each night really helped out a lot. Next goal, our seasonal meetings, when we meet with, town PD, code enforcement, marine patrol, town attorney's office, a couple of town board members, trustees and such. We want to keep those meetings going on because we work so good now that we have these meetings. In the past, they were few and far between. Now when we do these on a weekly basis and stuff, it just helps out everybody and increases our working together and cooperation with all the departments. Let's see. Goal 4, okay. Fourth goal, conducting ADA and readily achievable inspections on commercial buildings through site plans. We're able to identify multiple ADA deficiencies over multiple plans and bring them up to snuff. One of the examples I used was a bank in Montauk where they applied to do ADA readily achievable, and we found that maybe if they could make it readily achievable and within their cost, they could make all their entrances accessible, which they finally did agree. And now one of the banks in Montauk is completely accessible. They went above and beyond what they had to do and really stepped up for us. And we want to keep doing that with the ADA, keep checking it out, make everything we can accessible as possible around the town. Let's see, mandated inspections, fire safety inspections. We went from 630 commercial inspections in 2022 to 960 in 23. And then with the additional of our staffing up into 24, our goal numbers was 1,300. We just missed it by about 50 inspections, but we were still an increase from what we were. And again, that's what we want to do. We want to get into these buildings, these commercial entities on a more consistent basis. And that staffing is what really has helped get into them. And the target of the fire inspections, we increased them. What was this one? This is the hotel and motels, my multi-tenancies. Those went up to 300 inspections due to my guys being out in the field doing some of their training. This number was a little bit lower than I expected, but I think we could work on that and get those up this year. I'd like to take credit for meeting these goals and exceeding some of these goals, but I have to give it to my new guys and the town board because this is the most the support that I've ever had is from this board right here. I've been chief for 14 years, and you guys are really stepping up and helping out our office for public safety and fire safety. And I thank you guys so much for that. So now we move to 2025. Our first goal, again, is to keep up those numbers for getting into the nightclubs and restaurants and bars. It was a Herculean task for what my guys did last year. I hope I can keep up this pace again this year, and I think it really makes a difference. Continue our meetings, our weekly meetings, again, because it just is so important that we all get this information. Sharing of information keeps us all educated, all on the same page, and just makes it easier for us all to enforce our codes and laws. ADA, we're staying on top of that for our checklists for some of the existing facilities and for all the new projects coming out. Our mandated fire inspections, we finished out at approximately 1,200 in 24. And again, our goal numbers this year are going to be from 1,300 to 1,600 again. We're going to try and hit those numbers. My guys have been doing a lot of training the past couple of years, so hopefully now they're into the phase of just recertifying on that stuff, and spend more time in the field. Let's see, in our target for the multi-dwelling, the commercial hotels, motels, again, we're trying to hit that 300 number to get those inspected. And last but not least, there seems to be a renewed interest from schools, possibly getting our fire prevention programs back into all the schools. And I'd like to see us get into every classroom with K through 5 from Wayne-Scott to Montauk. And that's a big goal. And any help I can get from anybody to promote that, I will accept it.
All right.
That's it. Any questions?
Just thank you, Buzzy, to you and all your crew. I know consistently they go above and beyond with regards to public safety, both in their professional and in their personal lives. I know 3 of them are like volunteer firemen as well, out there themselves, so they see this. And just to remind the public that when they work with your department, it is about business and homeowners safety. It's prevention of life, through just some common hazards we see out there, extension cables, outlets being overloaded, et cetera, et cetera. It's we're working on the public's behalf. So thank you.
So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Buzzy.
And Buzzy, just one thing, you've left out the time that you and your team spend inspecting and ensuring the safety of tents for special events,
Yes.
generators for special events, bouncy, what do we call them?
Bouncy
Inflatables?
castles, yeah, the inflatable castles, yeah.
Inflatables for special events, and any type of staging for special events. Those are significant stats as well, as we process over 600 applications. Many of them have one of the above.
Yes, absolutely. That's not my goal, get more of those.
And fireworks, and
Yes.
fireworks.
Yeah. The goal is that safety of it all.
And if I could just say, because you mentioned as did Tim, the weekly meetings that we have, just for folks to know that we have public safety meetings. In the off season, we're meeting twice a month. And then during this, very soon, we'll be starting to meet every week. And that's with Chief Sarla from the police department, Tim Treadwell from Marine Patrol, yourself from Fire Marshal. We'll have Marty from Code. We've got a representative from the building department. Tina comes from the planning department. We've got Jake is there, and then Tom and myself. And these are meetings where we talk about what we're anticipating coming up for the week or weekend ahead, particularly during the season, what we saw and what you folks saw when you were out and about, and complaints that we've gotten from community members, and so that it's holistically looked at when there's an issue that comes up. And
Those meetings are critical. It's huge. They're huge.
yeah.
Thank you. Have a good morning.
Thank you. All right, Marty, you're up. Welcome, Marty.
Good afternoon, Madam Supervisor, Madam Deputy Supervisor, members of the board. First off, I'd like to thank my predecessor, Mr. Cooper, and my team, because I've been here less than a month, and the numbers and the success of this department I can hardly take any credit for anything they've done, and it's all due to them and the board for the support you've shown this department over the years. So thank you for everything you've done for them and for this department and for this town. So starting with the mission statement of the ordinance enforcement, code enforcement, our mission is to protect and preserve and support the health, safety, and welfare and quality of life of East Hampton residents through education, promotion of voluntary compliance, enforcement of the code of town of East Hampton and the New York State Uniform Crime Prevention and Building Code. And I think that's the key, is compliance through voluntary compliance, and that's the message that I believe I want to derive through my team, is voluntary compliance, and the message that I hope my team, and I believe my team, is all about that. We wish to have the message of, we wish to get the compliance, and as I've been attending the CAC meetings, that's been the message I've been pushing, that we wish to have that compliance and ask for the people to come to the understanding of what the codes are, what the violations are, and help them to understand. And my goal is to help through education, to help educate the community so they understand where the violations are or what the problems might be, so that we have a better quality of life overall for the town. So the accomplishments, again, as my predecessors and the department have had through the last year is the continued cooperation between the public safety, natural resources, and planning department resulted in multiple properties being brought into compliance in a more efficient and effective manner. Decreased number of illegal rentals, compliant due in part to combination of education and community of the town rental codes and more proactive enforcement. Collaboration with the town attorney's office to codify positive change in the lighting and litter codes that ensure the town's commitment to dark skies legislation and keeping our roads and landscapes free of waste and garbage. I know that Mr. Cooper was effective in communicating with the Montauk community, and I'm going to be going out with a couple of our officers this week to deliver some of those flyers again. And I'll be hitting some of the other parts of the town as well. The message about keeping our commercial properties, the front of the property clean and clear of the litter and garbage, especially before we get into the summer months. I think that education again, it's very important for our communities to understand, especially as we get our visitors coming in, that we keep our areas appealing and free of any of the debris and rubbish that might occur. Increased communication and outreach between public safety and town licensed establishments led to a significant decrease in problematic commercial premises during the summer session. My crew is extremely effective during the summer months with they call it the tabs tickets. And actually they're very excited to get into the summer months. I've never seen people very excited about the summer months, which I don't know what the past my predecessors have done, but they can't wait for the summer months to start writing the tabs tickets. One of my officers, Hunter, he can't wait to write the tabs. I promised him, I'm going to buy him a case of tab just because he's particularly excited about it. So they can't wait for those midnight shifts. So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but they're excited about it. And finally, the Administrative Adjudication Bureau, for tickets of quality of life infractions, resulted in approximately 225 hours of extra patrol time for ordinance inspectors. And I think that's a key number because I'm a big fan of a proactive patrol presence. When they're out in the field and they're out being seen and present, you don't know what kind of offenses or crimes or violations you are preventing by being seen and visibly out there. I know you're not preventing things by sitting in the office. So I'm a big fan of people being out on the field and driving around and being visible or walking around the neighborhoods or particularly walking on the street. And I'm sure the constituents love seeing, hopefully with a smile on their face, and hopefully they like seeing us, more in a friendlier fashion than having us come up with the citations. But sometimes that has to happen. But preferably they see us in a friendlier fashion. So the goals for 2025. Build on the communication and cooperation with the public safety and natural resources and planning department and the fire marshals to increase efficiency in the investigation throughout the town. In Southampton, we had actually a very close relationship with the fire marshal's office, and I want to continue that through the communication and partnership with all these departments. I think is key for the success of this department to move forward. Open communication, as I said, the communication between my department and the town to the commercial and residents is also a key for our success with all the other departments to make sure that I'm delivering as much as my information to the other departments as well as receiving the information from them and having a very open key communication with them. Continuing to work with the building department for a proactive enforcement of expired building permits to ensure the projects and constructions are being completed in a safe and timely manner. Per town and state codes. We have a very effective, some of our officers are very effective and work very effectively with the building department as far as doing stop work orders. I want to continue that, encourage that very close partnership when we have stop work orders or the need to go out there and post the placards for dangerous buildings. Very strong relationship, very important work, very crucial work to make sure we don't have any dangerous structures out there. Great relationship we have. Want to make sure we continue that and continue to address the dangerous structures as we see them. Continue the proactive quality of life enforcement and concentrating on the summer months in the areas of town that have high nightlife and licensing establishments. Again, to borrow some of the one of my predecessors speaking about the weekly meetings to talk about the key issues that are going to be coming up in the summer months to identify the commercial properties that are going to be key issues for us to address. We're going to definitely focus on those areas and to make sure that we are getting the proper attention. Make sure my team is available and accessible for those establishments. We already have the staffing set for the summer months. We're going to be starting it at the week before Memorial Day. So last year they started a little later. I decided we're going to start the week of Memorial Day, so we're ready for them, and we have the staffing ready for a 7-day approach of the 7 days a week. We'll have people on staff, and we already have the weekend set for that time. Continued proactive education and enforcement to further increase the reduction of short-term and illegal housing and apartment rentals. I've heard a lot of communication from some of the CAC meetings, and I anticipate to hear continuous, I assume I'll hear some of the similar situations. I had a lot of experience with this in my experience in Southampton, and I intend to personally mentor my team as far as some very mind-invested techniques on how to approach the rental issues, and they'll get into some of the training things I want to approach with my team as far as how we're going to address some of the rental issues. I think it's, while respecting the homeowners and not, and making sure we're being very respectful of them, there are definitely some concerns out there, but we're going to make sure we are addressing the concerns that I'm hearing from the CACs and the residents. So it is definitely a hot button issue for us. And to continue the education and information sharing with the residents and commercial establishments regarding to code and pertaining to lighting, littering, and quality of life issues. Similar to what happened last year with Mr. Cooper and the trash issue, I've been asked by the Chamber of Commerce to put together a noise, kind of a similar issue about the noise kind of a primer for them about what the noise kind of violations are, so they have an idea what it is. I'm working on something like that, so they could be aware of like a similar, basically a little training program for them, so they could have a similar kind of flyer working on that and other issues that come up for the CACs. I think that was a success, that flyer, so we could hand that out as it goes around, as we go through the communities and meet with the communities. So I think that was a very effective way of deliver the message. So I anticipate doing those kind of continued face-to-face communication and touching base with the community as much as possible. The training and staff development. In addition to the New York State mandated training our team does, there'll be other, I'm going to encourage my team to utilize the other training available through the Department of State training programs, which there are numerous other training programs available through the Emergency Homeland Security and FEMA. I am going to encourage them also, if anyone wants to participate in the ICC, which is International Code Council. The New York State building code is based on the ICC training, so if anyone wishes to participate in the ICC, International Code Council, it's a great asset, I believe, for any one of our code enforcement officers to get that certification. CEDAR is a code enforcement disaster assistant recovery team that New York State sponsors. It's a free training that they will offer for anyone. For if there's a disaster, they will have a team respond to assist a town in doing an assessment of the town, where we may not ever run into a situation where we have the team. To have someone with that kind of training, I think would be essential to have that kind of resource in our town. And I would love to have one of our officers be trained in that kind of, have that training available for us. The Spanish language mandated training, I looked into what Mr. Cooper was referring to, and that's it to be compliant with the language access laws, and I think that's a great idea to make sure that we are compliant with the New York State language access law. So I'm going to make sure that we offer that training available to our officers. And then there are the numerous other training classes. One of our other officers has already set up a CPR class for some of our officers to make sure that we have some of these other active trainings and other just classes and training developments as we see them coming along. So just to give you a quick rundown of the stats, to borrow a page from Mr. Treadwell, what he was doing, give you an idea of what the activities from last year that the team was involved with. Last year, they had 228 tab tickets, which involved like a lot of the quality of life issues from over the summer. 329 FATs, 116 stop work orders, 318 town warnings, and 116 118 order of remedies. Order of remedies are there's a town warning, which is a local code violation, and an order remedy is the state warning. The 329 FATs are the obviously the court appearance tickets. These are numbers that I'm very impressed with them, and I think that they show a very productive team over the year, and I'm very happy with the numbers that I believe that they were very productive throughout the year.
Thank you, Mike. And welcome. It's great to have you on board. And, I know you're meeting with the Amagansett CAC next Monday.
Yes,
so
sir.
thank you for making the time for that. And I agree with you, like being out there, that's the key.
And thank you for attending Wainscott CAC and really engaging so well with the folks there and addressing their concerns, and also laying out the approach that you have of it's about compliance and getting folks educated to the point where it's voluntary compliance. I think I know that the folks there were really receptive of your approach, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Just reiterate that. Welcome, Martin. We've only worked together, brief period of time, but I'm very impressed, and you've been very responsive to a couple of questions I've had. And just to reiterate what Kate said, your approach seems very much appropriate and fitting with what I think this board wants, which is compliance, acknowledging the importance of public safety and quality of life, but also in a friendly, non-police state manner. And I think that your approach is very welcomed, and I look forward to working with you more. You've not visited the Spring CAC yet, but we meet the third Tuesday. Open invitation. We can see if we can set it up this month or a future month. Thank you.
And the only thing I wanted to add, and we had this conversation already, Marty, is that we have heard from community members about obstructions on the right of way, and whether it's boulders, whether it's the metal stakes people put on because they don't want people parking, in front of their home, it creates a danger if a dog or a deer jumps out, and you have to, make a quick turn. So and it also came up in the agricultural presentation for the farm, for the tractor corridors or whatever that term was, to have right of ways cleared. So if that could be something that your folks are looking at too.
I'm researching that. I'm trying to.
And it is a part of my Wainscott liaison report as it came up there as well.
Yeah.
And I promise you'll have an opportunity to address that in the spring CAC community too.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thank you, Marty. Okay, so last up, we have amendments to Chapter 182 Nature Preserve, and we've got Scott Wilson and John Jilnicki here to present. David, I don't know if you had an introduction you wanted to.
My introduction is I want to thank, we have the co-chairman, Michael Jordan here of the Nature Preserve Committee, also the co-chair, Richmond May. This has been discussed for multiple years. Actually, I think we've even had presentations in the past. As Scott will see and show to the town board coming up now, is that the first draft of this Chapter 182 is sort of antiquated right now to what we need, and we need to move forward into modern times and how our land use is right now. I want to thank Michael and Rich and other members of the Nature Preserve Committee for putting in a lot of time in reviewing this with town attorneys, with John Chelnicki and Scott moving this forward. And they have fully recommended that these changes to the town board, and that's why we're here. And with that, I'll leave this to Scott Wilson.
Thank you. So there's many things that have changed since the inception of the Nature Preserve section of the Town Code, Chapter 182, which began in the late 80s with the first nature preserve parcels being added to the Town Code in 1993. There are 443 nature preserve parcels comprising 3,635 acres. And this is an important opportunity to re-examine, update, reaffirm the importance of the need for preservation and ongoing land management for our most pristine and wild lands. While there are numerous changes, most are for clarity purposes and don't substantively change the spirit or goal of the existing code. In a nutshell, the proposed local law amends Chapter 182 of the Town Code, East Hampton Town Nature Preserve, to clarify various provisions of the chapter and to update and revise other provisions of the chapter to more accurately set forth current policies and procedures which have evolved with the improvements in technology, increased knowledge of environmental factors, and changes to the town's departmental structure. So just a little background. The purpose and importance of the code has not changed. However, change over time is necessary to update and account for several newer conditions, such as the Community Preservation Fund purchases, sometimes dedicated as nature preserves, and the creation of a land acquisition and management department, which now does all the day-to-day management of all preserves, be they nature preserve or CPF. We have gratefully worked with the Nature Preserve Committee since 2011. I think this is the third time we've actually presented modifications to this chapter. Perhaps the first two times we were a little ambitious, and so this is a little bit more reserved and staying within the confines specifically of the nature preserve properties. And so this section of the code better reflects ongoing land management's evolving issues, including violations and enforcement. This iteration dated 12/5/24 was recommended by the Nature Preserve Committee on April 12th, 2025. I want to thank the Nature Preserve Committee in particular, particularly the chairs, Zach Cohn, who helped these first iterations right from 2011 till we made a presentation to the town board in 2015, which was the first time, and I think we did it again in 2019. That was before COVID hit, and we were not able to capitalize on those changes at that time, and so here we're back before you with changes that we're currently presenting. So other than Zach Cohen, I also want to thank Rick Whalen. He was the chair for a while, and specifically both Michael Jordan, who's here today, and Richard May, who are our current chairs of the Nature Preserve Committee. So on a macro level, the revisions or modernization of the code are for clarity purposes. So these changes being designed to strengthen the code, to be more clear, to help not only the town board, our department as the land managers, code enforcement, marine patrol. We wanted to give them better clarity on the code, and this is an opportunity to do that. We wanted to, one of the specific changes would be a reduction of the minimum voting committee members from 10 to 7, but also expanding the responsibilities of the Nature Preserve Committee. This is actually a direct reflection of how difficult it simply is to get volunteers to come on a regular basis to meeting after meeting. And the more number, or the higher number that the town board requires, the more difficult it is to simply get a quorum there. And since we vote on a regular basis, if you can't get a quorum, you've wasted your time there. Not wasted your time, but it makes it more difficult to move things consistently forward. So that was a specific change. The Land Acquisition and Management Department has been added where appropriate to the chapter to reflect their active role. Again, our department didn't exist at the time Nature Preserve section was, so there wasn't a day-to-day land management presence, and so now we have that. And so this is an opportunity to reflect that within the town code. Previously, it was just a natural resources department and planning that was referenced to the code. We weren't referenced at all. So, And we actually took over the Nature Preserve day-to-day management in 2010. Andy Gates was actually moved over from another department to our department, and those 3,000 acres came with him. So that was a busy day. And so let's see. We also define the duties of the land management department, which hadn't been defined previously. So on page 13 of these iterations, there was a brand new little section of the code to reflect the day-to-day duties. So with the exception of trails, the Natural Resources Department and the Planning Department retain their roles from the original chapter. So we're trying to be more inclusive than exclusive. Let's see here. Under the generic management plan, so there's a difference between site-specific or property-specific management plans and the generic management plans. Every time the town board adopts a new property into the nature preserve section of code, which you do, via public hearing, local law public hearing, a generic management plan will apply to that property immediately. And so we made some updates and took into consideration some enforcement issues in that regard. 182-16D, prohibited actions. This was an important one. Unauthorized storage or abandonment of vehicles of any kind, including boats, kayaks, and trailers, outside of legal hours of operation as per Town Code Chapter 91, which is basically a dawn to dusk. So this has been an ongoing issue, particularly on Girard Drive, where there's a buildup or storage of boats on the nature preserve. And, on a day-to-day basis, if you bring your boat down and leave it there for the day and go do something else and come back and get it, that's not an issue. But when you leave a collection of a dozen boats in one area on top of the native vegetation, which is, tidal wetlands, pretty sensitive, they no longer get sun and die off. It's almost, a situation where you're unintentionally clearing that land by just, robbing it of its sunshine. And we also included a list of permitted uses, which, hiking, bicycling, horseback riding, foraging, hunting, etc. And so one special note, we don't make changes once I put it forth to the town board and we have a recommendation from the Nature Preserve Committee. It's coming to you, as it was recommended from them. I noted in discussions with Mr. Lees, and particularly regarding hunting, we have in the prohibited section, we have no unauthorized hunting, and the approved or permitted things, it also lists hunting. Now, unless you go and read Chapter 91, that might seem confusing. So recommending one tiny change. So I just want to differentiate between unauthorized hunting and authorized hunting, because not all nature preserves are obviously on the list. We have a separate section of code that authorize hunting on certain properties. Some of those happen to be nature preserves. And so I just want to differentiate and add that one particular word, authorized versus unauthorized. And lastly, just with regard to next steps, I'm very hopeful that this precipitates a discussion not only with the town board, but the general public, who I hope have comments or are willing to read this section of code. I mean, it's riveting. You should definitely read it. I highly recommend it. Then we'll take those proposed comments and changes back. We'll do a revised iteration for your approval. And then obviously, then we have to schedule and hold a local law public hearing, and then we'll do an authorizing resolution to update the section of code. So that's sort of the overview. John Jilnicki was instrumental in helping revise, create, put this in a format that is, code legible. And you want to have some comments on some specificity here. And Michael, if you have some comments too, I would love it if you would come up and say a few words as well. But I'm just going to have this pretty picture on the front while you do that.
Yeah, John, if you could take us through some of the code changes as we go through.
Scott, you can take it down.
Yeah?
Yeah, that way.
That's a nice shot of Girard Drive, though.
Beautiful, and maybe you should share that with Patrick for social media.
Beautiful.
Welcome, John.
Hello, how are you? Nice to see everybody. So basically, without getting into the weeds on it, unless there's a question or you want to, Scott kind of summarized it pretty well. This is an update to the nature preserve section to basically modernize it to kind of reflect the process that actually is going on now, presently. The prior code doesn't really have a lot of reference to the Department of Land Management and their role in both developing the management plans and managing the properties once we acquire them. So this updates the code to include the Land Management Department. And it's made a few tweaks here and there. For instance, one of the
Yeah,
objectives.
if you could just take us through all the changes, I think that would be helpful for the folks at home.
All right. All right. Well, one of the changes that are proposed is to include as aside from here and there's a couple of words in various paragraphs that I don't know that we need to address directly, unless you have a question on it. But basically, we added an objective to the list of objectives, and that is the protection of larger blocks of area, where larger undeveloped areas that would sustain some sort of an ecosystem that is dependent upon by various animals and plants. And so we have been assembling, as you know, larger blocks as properties become available to create these larger protected areas of undeveloped land. So that's an added objective that's spelled out in the statute. We've done some updates to definitions. For instance, we just mentioned that the committee refers to the Nature Preserve Committee, which wasn't in the existing code. Tweaked a little bit of languages here and there in the existing definitions. Let me see what else we've got here.
Well, we also added the Department of Land Acquisition and Management into a definition,
Yes.
which wasn't in there initially.
Was not in there previously at all. That's right.
And also under Nature Preserve, incorrectly, a lot of times people think about a nature preserve. A nature preserve is a piece of property that's actually gone through form of designation as a nature preserve, not purchased as open space, but there's a specific process to go through. So that was one of the things that was specifically mentioned into the code. It goes to the process that's related later in the code in chapter 182 and 182.11, which is a form of public hearing.
Right. Yeah, we spelled out with a little more clarity the process for nominating a property and reviewing it. The Nature Preserve Committee consults with the Planning Department and Natural Resources Department, land acquisition, of course, and makes that recommendation to the town board. And then you're going to have a public hearing process with regard to the acquisition if the town board agrees with the committee's recommendation to acquire property.
And that's on page 5 for the board members following 182.11 on there then too.
Correct.
So that would be the nomination and dedication process on there then too.
Started in 182.10 with the criteria for inclusion.
Right. 182.10, that has the additional provision in there that refers to the, let's see. Okay, there's not a lot of changes initially in this section. I mean, we changed, from freshwater or saltwater to freshwater and tidal. We referenced other applicable federal laws to just alert people to the fact that, the compliance with those are required. And added the word important to habitat to stress that. And we added effects of glaciation upon Long Island's landscape in E. And then we added the last in I, exemplifies wilderness or has natural characteristics which make it especially suitable for human outdoor appreciation or enjoyment of the natural environment. And then we go into the nomination process, which just defines the process and how it's going to work, requires a public hearing. We changed the 45 days to 60 days, date for a hearing upon receipt of a recommendation. And it's a small change in the next section too. We went from 3 to 5 days, and then not more than 30 days in advance the notice goes out. We talk about the formation or the makeup of the Nature Preserve Committee, establishment, number of members and who they should be. And then we define the responsibilities of the Nature Preserve Committee. This is all in 182.12. And the process of how they nominate a property. Their role in developing a management plan for the properties that are acquired. And as Scott mentioned before, we do provide for a generic management plan. So automatically upon acquisition of a property, unless there's a specific plan that applies, the generic plan applies automatically. And that has a list of permitted activities and prohibited activities. And in addition, if there's there is a management plan that doesn't conflict with what's in the generic plan, and there's a prohibition in the generic plan that is not in the management plan, that's going to apply, unless the management plan specifically says, but this shall not apply. So all of these things, should something be left out of a plan, but it's in a generic plan, it's covered, unless there's a reason that we called out that we didn't want that to apply. We'd have to specify it in the management plan itself, which I think was a good idea. So, nothing gets missed. Let's see. We did also provide we have prohibitions on clearing properties. We provided specifically for the allowance of periodic mowing if it's needed to restore or maintain historic condition, and for habitat restoration and grassland management as well on these properties, which is something that wasn't in the code before.
And that's come up more as some of the properties that have either been purchased for either ag use or for vistas. Historically, a lot of the areas here were grasslands that keep down either invasives or such.
Yeah, that's, and I don't know if it's under that chapter that we discuss this, but, invasives are obviously such a huge part of this discussion on nature preserves. And is that in any way worked into the management goals and issues here?
Some of them actually get more specific when we go to individual properties on there, and that a lot of that stuff gets described. But when you're in two chapters in the forward, 182.15, 16 location.
Okay.
Let's see, what else do we have here? We were specifically provided for modification of management plans, which wasn't clearly noted in the prior version. We also...
That's 182.15?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then, this actually allows, there's a process for modifying an existing management plan and require a hearing, public notice. We did also...
And if I just go with the Tom said, so one of the properties we had was the Maloney property, which is on Accabonac Harbor. And it was full of bamboo at that time then too. And it was a CPF property. The house was purchased, removed, but it was blighted with two acres of bamboo. A lot. So the management plan allowed for the removal of those invasive species and a process for doing so then too. So there is as what was John and Scott said, there's a generic management plan when all properties are purchased, but then there's specific management plans that are developed mostly by the Nature Preserve Committee for individual properties that should be tailored to those things, their needs, either historic, vistas, invasive species or such also then too.
Yeah, no, I totally get that on the individual plans. I wonder, and I think it's more for 16 under the generic management plan, do we want to include anything in there pertaining to that, because it is such an issue.
Okay.
All right, and just following through on that 182.15, recognizing technology, it provides that, our plans will be on the town's website and available for review. There's also some other changes that recognize technology. We are basically intending to continuously on a roll update the website with new information, new maps, new trail information, whatever we have, rather than, I think it was periodically done quarterly in the past. I'm not sure what the time frame was. I think it was quarterly. So this will be a rolling, ongoing update at all times. This also does recognize trails. We didn't really have a lot of specifics in the earlier version about trails and management of trails and relocation of trails. And this version provides a path for doing that. It provides for modification of a trail. There's a process that requires a public notice and a hearing to be held to consider relocating trails. Maintenance of properties. I think Scott hit on most of these. I'm trying to think if there's anything he didn't talk about. Rear left access and parking, the trails, provides for removal of structures on properties that we acquire that need to be removed. Habitat restoration, vegetation, all permitted items. And then we have a specific list of prohibited activities on properties in the generic section.
And if maybe I could touch on 182 on page 10, C3D. You let me know, Tom. So the language down there is habitat restoration or revegetation activities pursuant to restoration or revegetating plan approved by Town Natural Resources Department and Town Board resolution. That could be potentially encapsulate invasive species, or we can expand on that too. Yeah. The board can get back to us on that.
And all of your permitted uses are all listed in on page, bottom of page 11, onto page 12 are the permitted uses on properties that would be covered by generic plan.
Specifically in D7 on page 11, the unauthorized storage or abandonment of vehicles or vessels outside legal hours of operation on there. We've seen that been escalating. I know that's a situation that we see on many of our lands. Marine Patrol has issues, and this will be able to encapsulate that enforcement also then too.
May I ask, is there a provision and for if there's a situation like the southern pine beetle infestation where those trees can be felled if they're dead?
There's nothing specific. Nothing specific to.
Good one.
Nothing specific to that.
I mean, habitat restoration again, really, because you know, to take them down, you're beginning to restore the habitat to some degree. But yeah.
I mean, you'd have to be very carefully, worded to prevent abuse of something like that. But it is a concern in the community for any type of danger of wildfire, how properties are able to be managed.
So let us get back to on that one, because mostly a lot of the felling of trees were for public safety on some of our trails. So there might be an aspect there, but also for fire prevention, we'll bring that back. And that's what we're trying to get. This is dense, let me be honest. Yeah, right. So as we get into from the macro to the micro, we'll review those again then too and bring it back on there. But yes, we'll look into that. Good point.
The following section is trails and trail relocations, which kind of touched on already. And then the Department of Land Management and its duties are spelled out in 182.18. There are some other sections that were omitted that we kind of felt not necessary in the update provision that were probably useful at the initial adoption of this chapter, which would be some of the miscellaneous provisions, the severability provisions. There is a change I want to call your attention to so you're aware of this. In 182.20, which is penalties, the proposal is to strike, and I think it was missed in one of them. Well, that's only for one section. 182.16D4 remains a misdemeanor and punishable by a fine. But you'll see in the rest of the offenses, first, second, and third offenses, these are monetary penalties with the imprisonment period removed, which basically changes them from a misdemeanor to a violation, which changes a few things for us. One being the ability to prosecute. There's a lesser standard when it's a violation than if it's a crime. And just with past experience in a lot of these situations, it's very, very rare. In fact, I don't think there's ever been a situation where somebody was actually given a jail term relating to a violation of a section like this. Somebody did have a short jail term because it wasn't related to the violation itself, but the fact that they disobeyed a court order. And so the judge felt it was appropriate to give them 2 weeks and
Are these the maximum penalties we're allowed to impose?
You can revisit the amount of penalties if you want to do that. I mean, you can. I mean, we typically have always adopted, or we started adopting a not less than penalty just to make sure that we at least get that amount as a penalty. I don't know how much discussion on the committee's level they've had about penalties, but maybe Mr. Jordan can give us some info on that. But
I don't mind exploring that again, because these are some of our most pristine lands, and someone goes in there and starts scribing them or cutting or removing them then too, for their own personal gain. That's cost of doing business. We see that other thing. So maybe the board will discuss that also.
Yeah, I would like to look at that, and in relation to the offenses,
Okay.
equal to the offense that's happening.
mm-hmm.
Okay.
In some other sections of code, sometimes we'll see things about, the cost of restoration or twice the cost of restoration, something along those lines too, which, is another way to deal with it too.
Yeah, if someone's, takes down knowingly, let me get that in there first, knowingly, takes down an entire, 1,000 square foot of nature preserve trees that have been there for, decades, to improve their view or something, then I think that penalty
it's more than $350.
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think that should be more than.
So we'll discuss that with Jake and yourself on there, but I got point well received.
I can look at that, but I just wanted to point that out. That's a change that you might not have noticed if you just went through it quickly.
And also consider, since we realize this now, destruction of habitat. It's not just taking down trees, you're also destroying habitat and biosystems important to the town.
Right.
I think, and I don't know if you got to it yet, but 182.21, John, enforcement, speaking with code enforcement on this, if they're going to build a case based on this, the depositions from natural resources to demonstrate said damage, be it of monetary value or habitat value, is absolutely critical for us to have enforcement and potential prosecution. So I don't know if that's wording or language we want to work into enforcement, but I do know in terms of us actually operating, there is that need.
Okay. So
we'll look into that also.
Coordination amongst departments is required for enforcement, something along those lines? All right. Just look at one other thing, see if we have to call that out 16.
I think that's about it on there. So,
so.
It's going through from top to bottom on the changes. But again, the main thing here is that this original code was written 1991, before before the department that manages it and before the CPF, which actually much of our lands have been purchased through since then too. So to update it to this point, it's finally here. There's a couple of things we'll go back and reference and get back to the board. Michael, do you have any comments from as chair of the committee? Okay, sorry.
Because I do have something, page 11. So prohibited, we have unauthorized vehicular access in prohibited. And then in permitted uses, we have bicycling. With the proliferation of e-bikes, and some people think that e-bikes, I guess if because I'll talk about this in my liaison report, if e-bikes don't have pedals, then they are considered a vehicle. So I don't know if we need to get, because of that, this needs to be, spelled out a little bit.
Yeah, so we've discussed that multiple times in the Nature Preserve Committee on there, and there's both sides of the coins on there. It hasn't been discussed most recently since the power of these e-bikes. And one of the fears is that the torque on e-bikes will ruin the trails. You know, tires go, the torque. But also what an e-bike might do is allow a pedal assist, which I think is a different class of an e-bike, to allow more access for individuals onto trails when needed also. So there's been back and forth debate on that within the Nature Preserve Committee. So we can look at that, which might be most appropriate. We don't want to limit individuals' recreation on trails,
Right.
but we also don't want to provide avenues for vehicles, we want to say, that would be damaging to.
Yeah, and speeding as well, a speed, limit. If I don't know, the e-bikes can get pretty quick. So you definitely want to limit with the multiple users on a trail and limited sight. You don't want someone speeding through the trail.
So we could maybe develop a definition of vehicles and put it in definition section. So when it speaks
Or
to,
it's bicycling or, e-bikes with pedal assist.
right, okay.
You know,
Just so that's clear. So if you're no pedals, then it's a motor vehicle.
It's a motor
basically.
vehicle.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions or?
No, but again, to the board members, as we go through this to the public, reach out to my office, Scott's office. We'll keep going back and trying to get some more of this questions answered and change some of the added draft language that we're requesting, bring it back so we can continue to move this
So
forward.
when your next Nature Preserve Committee is Thursday night?
No, it's been canceled this Thursday, and that's my blazing report.
Oh, okay.
So it's not until June.
Okay.
So there's time for us to try to develop some, so we can discuss it as a committee in June then too.
Okay.
But in advance of that, if Michael wanted to have some comments for all your
I'm
assistants.
supportive of the reduction in members, by the way, having been on the Nature Preserve Committee in the past. Sometimes reaching that quorum was quite difficult and onerous and these are volunteers.
Correct.
So I appreciate that change.
And also having an odd number is better than having an even number.
I was going to mention that, but yes, it always is
At least you have a final decision.
at some point.
There's no draws.
I have, no, I'm not sure. I can't open on my computer right now, the most recent. Do you want this one?
Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. In answer to the question on removing any jail time or sentencing, frankly, I think that came up just very, very recently, and I think Scott had mentioned it to me, and it was in there, and I just, okay, that's what you want without really thinking about it. But if we need to go back and look at that, then that's fine.
I think financial penalties are probably more realistic. The financial penalties may need to change, may be more realistic.
Yeah. Kate, also on your suggestion, we also obviously need to go back and look. I would not mention specifically the southern pine beetle infestations, but make sure we have just broadly for anything that we need to go in like that, because we're also facing now the elm disease, the American elm disease.
And beech.
And I know over near where I live, where you're close to the, what is it, the Stony Hill area, it's nothing but beech trees, and that will be you'll have total devastation in there at some point. And there's an awful lot of nature preserve area in there. So
It's heartbreaking.
it is. One of the things I also wanted to mention, just with the history of this, and I can't recall what year I actually first got on the Nature Preserve Committee, but Zach was chair, and it was within a year, I think maybe, of when I got on. This is quite a few years ago. But it was Zach, Rick Whalen, and I were a committee to go back and look at this. I didn't know that Rick had, not Rick, but Scott had actually started looking at this earlier, but several years before I got out here, and my wife and I moved out here. But it's been a long haul, frankly, because we had where three of us were working on it as a subcommittee of the Nature Preserve Committee. I remember sitting in my breakfast room at times with the three of us working on it. And then with the changes that go on with Rick getting off the committee, somehow it sort of dropped off our attention. And we got it back on, I think, over a year ago to go back and address that. In fact, one of the things I proposed to Andy Gates is that we need to have, for any committee, we need to keep a list of things that come up but haven't been completed. And every meeting, just go over it and say, okay, any update on this, any update, and going forward, because this took a long time to get here, and we're very close to the end.
But you do a tremendous amount of work on that committee as well. Zach was chair when I was on. I don't think we crossed paths.
No.
But that committee is, a great group of volunteers that really do a tremendous amount of work.
Yeah, we didn't move out here. I retired in 2013, and we moved out full-time.
Yeah, I don't know.
2013, so.
Don't ask me dates.
Excuse me?
Don't ask me when I was on anywhere, but I spend a lot of time on that committee. It was really, and I appreciate the work that committee does.
Well, thank you.
So, Michael, I'll gather these comments. We'll talk again.
Yeah, we will.
To the board, and we'll bring this back, because I think, as we're all recognizing, there needs to be a change to the code. Let's make the right change to the code.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Thurgood Marshall that said, when you try to make up a law, you try to think of everything. In the end, thinking of everything is very difficult to do. I'm paraphrasing it, but that's what we're trying to do here also. So thank you.
We'll get there.
Yeah, don't throw out the good in search of the perfect.
I just want to say thank you too to Scott, John, Michael, David. I think it's really important. We do the best we can with the code, but as David pointed out, this goes back to the 90s. Things change, we learn. I think it's important to go through these thoughtful efforts, and obviously there's a lot of catch up to do. So I just encourage this sort of continuous, thoughtful revisions when necessary. So thank you for your work.
Well, thank you.
Okay, Tom.
Liaison reports. Amagansett Advisory Committee will be meeting next Monday, 6:30 p.m. at the school library. We'll be going over OpenGov, and we will also have Marty Cloden from Code Enforcement attending that meeting as well. IT department, OpenGov is available for the following departments: Marine Patrol, Ordnance Planning, Building, planning and building, sorry. All planning applications are required to be submitted online, as will all building applications as of May 19th. This is to save you time and money. One thing I want to say with this is we've had some kind of publications on it. Just as Kate called out earlier, a huge thank you to the IT department. Across so many areas of our operation, they're the oil that allow us to work, be it through simple email fixes, to you name it, the complex workings of OpenGov. They're an amazing crew and do an amazing job. So thank you to all of them for getting this out there for the town. Human Services. We have restriping with the parking lot has been completed. The purchase order for the restriping the parking lot has been completed, and we're waiting to hear back from the vendor as to when the work will be done. We're going to begin bleaching and scraping the senior center the existing senior center building next week. Once that is done, hopefully around 2 weeks, we're estimating, we'll have painting and staining going on the building as well, and we're also replacing the faded signs at the site. On Monday, May 5th, we kicked off the walking club. The supervisor was a guest there.
It rained. We rescheduled. It's for this coming Monday.
This coming Monday, excellent. Okay. And the track, which has been redone, resurfaced, it looks lovely. It'll be open all day to be used whenever seniors feel like walking. There is a walking club for those interested in joining. There will be another Pollock Krasner workshop on Tuesday, May 13th at 1 p.m. And additionally, part of our new program, we have painting and drawing instruction led by 2 members of the East Hampton Arts Council. On May 13th, we have Kate Goldman at 2 p.m. And on May 27th, we have Teresa Lawler at 2 p.m. We also have an arts and crafts project doing a shelf shadow box taking place this Friday, May 9th at 1 p.m. Fire Marshal, thank you very much to the office for the excellent presentation today. The inspections continue out there. As we mentioned, all business owners, just please check your fire exits, your extension cords, your outlets being overloaded. It's protecting you and your customers. Trustees, Chelsea, we could just bring up this first image. The trustees have reached out to us about some signage at Louse Point Road. Fundamentally, the issue here, as you can see on the image, where that car is parked in the middle, that access point is often getting blocked for commercial fishermen trying to access the beach at that point. And the trustees have asked if there can be a signage put up just saying no public parking at this location. Just wanted to bring to the board's attention. We can zoom out a bit just so people of the public generally understand where this is as well. It's on the second slide. So, going out towards the main Louse Point Peninsula, you can see at the top there, the car is at the very bottom of the screen on the right-hand side. So just in terms of where signage could go, I'm thinking to the left, if all town boards are supportive of this, we can get a resolution on. But if members of the public have any comments about this as well, do feel free to reach out to my office with regards to that.
On the boat ramp or on the bay side?
On the bay side.
There's a signpost there, so I mean, it's not really a problem. Yeah.
Okay. Sanitation, just we've got a lot going on in the sanitation department, as you'll see from some upcoming resolutions. We also have LKMA working to review the bids for the lean-to where the previous construction debris location was. So that construction will be happening in the near future. And the resolutions, you'll see we have some bonds going out for some improvements there. As we put money into that center, one thing we do notice when we hear from the public is there's a lot of litter on the ground. And, look, that litter is coming from us, the public. So I just wish to encourage you as residents of this town, if you're up there and you see litter on the ground, please take the time to pick it up. Thank you. Next, we have Brooks Park. The committee chairs there have reached out to me regarding a beech tree on that property that is of significance and asking if the town would be open to a treatment to help preserve that beech tree from the beech tree disease. We have talked to the Natural Resource Department with this, and we've done some different types of treatments on some of the beech trees on the town property to help support their immune systems. But what the committee is actually looking for is a different treatment. I think it's the injection-based treatment. I wanted to bring it to the town board's attention. It's not something we're doing elsewhere on land. I have reached out to Native American leaders in the community as well, if there's any beech trees on town land that they're concerned about. I haven't heard anything back on that, but it is something I think that, as we identify more trees that are going to come into risk with this, if there are trees of cultural significance, we should have a kind of a working plan, perhaps for how we will address them. I don't want to take it on a one-off basis. I think it's something we should look to expand as that disease takes hold more. Special events and film, Councilperson Rogers, you mentioned this as well, but just to all applicants, some of the initial things we're beginning to see that are causing applications to come back. If you have an open flame, a tent, or a generator in your application, please check with the Fire Marshal's office to see as and when a permit is required. If you're unsure, the number to reach them is 631-329-3473. And just a reminder for applicants too that, if you are having more than one event under a tent, you need a tent permit for each event as you submit that. The Anti-Bias Task Force, the diversity show continues on LTV. Any residents interested in being interviewed to discuss their or their family's histories with the town, please contact my office for consideration by the committee. East Hampton Youth Task Force. At the request of some of the youth organizations, I met last week with the Southampton Youth Bureau to understand what their operation is and what the services are that they offer to Southampton Town. With the kind of concept of, is this something we would be interested in doing in East Hampton Town itself? Going forward, I'll have a meeting with the director of the Human Services Department to see, what scope there might be. But it is a huge benefit in Southampton Town. Talking to some of the youth social workers in our town, they do see immense benefit here too. So it's something that just as we move forward to kind of keep on the radar. The Arts Council Committee, just a reminder, June 12th, there is going to be an event at LTV hosted by the Arts Council to review how to support the arts and the artists in our community. Business committee raised concerns just over building department. I know we've heard it, my colleagues via emails as well. Just, obviously with personnel changes, there've been challenges with timing going on there. I just want to kind of speak to the public, and I'm sure we all will. We are in the process of getting in candidates into interview for that department. It's operations of any similar business at this point. It is a challenge. We ask you to be patient with us. We do have a really good, strong team in there who are working hard. But please, businesses, just be patient as you can.
And I'll just jump in there, Tom, and say one of the delays that have been happening is because in courtesy and concern for the rollout of OpenGov in that particular department, they've been operating lately with a hybrid system where you can either bring your application still in paper or use the digital platform. When folks are bringing those applications in, then the staff needs to act as the applicant and upload all of that information manually into the OpenGov system. So of course, that we ask for folks' patience not only for staffing, but also as we transition to the OpenGov system, which once that transition ends in next week, in May's 19th, then it'll only be digital only, and that will free up the staff from having to spend that time uploading. But they have been there on weekends as well in order to keep that process moving. But thank you, Tom. We do ask for folks' patience on that.
Emergency preparedness. It is Hurricane Preparedness Week for FEMA this week. Just wanted to kind of call out and remind the public of a few things. So Atlantic hurricane season begins June 1st and goes through November 30th. Just in overall terms of preparation for hurricanes, what is on our literature and the FEMA literature are the few following key points. The first is to know your hurricane risk. We obviously, as this town, we have a history of hurricanes coming in here. We also have known areas that are prone to storm surges and flooding, which is the major risk associated with hurricanes. So, be aware of the risk that you're facing. The second key point is making an emergency plan. Make sure that your household knows what your hurricane plan is. Your office, your kids' daycare, anywhere else you frequent should be in your hurricane plan. Knowing your evacuation zone, knowing if you are in an area of risk and knowing safe areas to go. These are posted on the town website. There's 2 existing shelters in the town, which are the Montauk Playhouse and the East Hampton High School. There are additional evacuation centers in the town, again, listed on both the town website and the Suffolk County website as well. For those with disabilities, if you identify that you may need additional help during emergency, please plan for that accordingly. The Human Services Department does keep a record for anybody who does require additional assistance. If you do think you may, please reach out to myself or the Human Services Department and provide your details accordingly. Reviewing your important documents, make sure any personal documents, IDs, insurance policies are up to date and keep them secure accordingly. Strengthen your home, decluttering your drains, gutters, bringing in outside furniture, consider hurricane shutters, getting tech ready, making sure you can charge your phone. If you live in an area that is prone to flooding, understand how you can get out of those areas should it come on faster than you expect. Recognizing warning and alerts, helping your neighborhood and gathering supplies. I was able last week to attend a FEMA and NOAA presentation. It was about 8 hours of just going through, how those organizations track, monitor, and advise of oncoming hurricanes. There is a huge amount of science behind it. There's also, as with all weather, a huge degree of uncertainty. But for those who, do have concerns, there is the FEMA app that can give you live updates on things like this. And, we continue to review them both with our Emergency Preparedness Committee and with the town's Emergency Preparedness Coordinator. Lastly, tick control. I know we were hoping with the cold winter that tick populations would be down. It is not the case. They are hugely abundant out there. We did post in our town East Hampton Tick Control meeting minutes, the presentation by Dr. Scott Campbell, but just some basic advice. If you are out there in the brush or outdoors, wear long pants, treat them with permethrin, be vigilant, check yourself in those areas you do wish to avoid avoid tick-borne diseases. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. David?
Yes, as mentioned earlier, the Beach Advisory Working Group met last week. We would like to present the season 2025 program to the town board next Tuesday on the agenda. I thank the supervisor for putting that on. Also, as mentioned, the Nature Preserve Committee for this week is postponed until next month, and we'll bring all this information back as I gather, as we already discussed. We have a couple updates here. Update on the construction of the Stephen Hans Path and Long Lane Roundabout. That is moving ahead. There were delays on that based on some of the utility movements on there. That project's looking to go into June and probably be complete, I would say, probably by about the third week of June. As you go there right now, the contractors are pouring concrete and such, so please be cautious as you drive through that intersection, as there's multiple projects there. There's ours, and there's also the state project at 114 and Stephen Hans Path, which also experienced the same delays, but is now moving forward also, and will go past the Memorial Day weekend.
So it looks like we're going to get this wrapped up and they're not going to have to come back in the fall. Right.
Oh, that's our plan.
Yeah. Because I know you've been kind, but Verizon caused a tremendous delay by not getting their equipment off the poles.
That would be a utility. Yep. Yep. Yeah, it delayed us by a couple months.
Yeah.
Either way, so that project's going to be moving ahead then too. But also, as the volume of traffic increases and you're doing construction at the same time, everyone should just take heed to that then too. At Stephen Hans Path at the Fred Thea Recreational Facility, the multi-use field is moving forward at a steady clip right now. That projected completion is going to be probably in about 2 months into they're installing the light posts on there, the fencing on there. Next one would be drainage, and the field would be going on then too. I thank the contractors for moving along with that. The Montauk Playhouse, the update on that is that project is getting close to its last final weeks of construction on there, and the punch list will probably be put out sometime in next month on there. But that project's moving forward and is looking quite great right now then too. More information ahead. I want to thank the Montauk Chamber of Commerce, all our departments that attended, the supervisor also, for attending the pre-season meeting for the Montauk Chamber with many of their members, as we've done in Montauk over the recent years, to meet with members of the Chamber of Commerce, answer their questions, and also make sure that they know who the contact, and that we have an open door policy also. So thank you to the Chamber and Leo Daunt for that. The Suffolk County Aquaculture Lease Program is having an in-person meeting on Wednesday, May 14th, 5 p.m. This will be to discuss presentation of 5 applications received part of the 2025 aquaculture lease program. Anyone that needs more information, please contact Thomas Relicki, an environmental planner at the Suffolk County Aquaculture Lease Program. As an update in Napeague State Park, then to update is that a quick update is that the contract to create the burn piles has been fully executed. Work is expected to start potentially next week on creating those burn piles. Deadline to submit bids for the burn boss to write the fuel management plan was last Friday. There probably might only be one individual submitting this, and they could consider it a sole source vendor. Bid documents for next winter's felling also recently just got posted, and they're pretty much stating that they're on target to meet the state park's April's meeting information deadlines then too. More information to come as the future as we move ahead. 2 other things, the Montauk dredging, we'll see a resolution to increase our bonding for that as far as our 10% match cost that, as this project has got a little more expensive on there. We need to have that money prepared to move ahead, even though Army Corps of Engineers might say it's not going to be that expensive, but we have to be prepared for it based on what some of their projected costs would be. We won't know until they go out to their procurement and bid, which would probably be June also. As we hear, lawn mowing is happening right now outside our walls here. I want to let the board members and the general public know that the departments of highway and also buildings and grounds is gearing up for our right-of-way mowing and also our mowing of our parks and cemeteries. With that, every year, grass grows fast right now. Grass is going to grow really fast when it rains in the sun and it rains in the sun and it rains in the sun. Please have a little patience. I know you're hearing that word. As new staff and new contractors find out where those locations are going to be and find out how long it takes them. Any questions, please contact my office. We'll try to address them as soon as possible. But I've acknowledged the historical locations in the right-of-way that have been mowed will continue to be mowed. And as far as our parks, we have a good plan of attack on that then too. Lastly, I want to not get this incorrect, but I want to let everyone know and welcome the public on behalf of the American Legion that they are going to be having the Vietnam Traveling Memorial Wall. It's a 5/8 replica of the Vietnam Wall. It measures 300 feet long by 60 feet wide. The opening ceremony is May 23rd at 10 a.m., and it's going to be on display May 23rd to May 26th at the American Legion in Amagansett at 15 Montauk Highway. The American Legion invites all community members to join them in honoring the sacrifices made by our veterans. And with that, that's all I have.
Thank you, David. Kate?
Yes, thank you. So Wayne Scott CAC met on Saturday in person at the chapel. There were 2 guest speakers, our new code enforcement director, Marty Culloden, and David Egan from the Wayne Scott School District. He was speaking about the upcoming budget for the Wayne Scott School, and that the vote, all members of Wayne Scott should know that the school budget vote is on May 20th. And if you need any information on that, please call 631-537-1080. I spoke of the upcoming paving repair work that's going to be done by Orsted on Beach Lane. In fact, I have a site visit there early tomorrow morning with Kevin Cobb from the Highway Department and Hoagland Group representatives again, that we gave them permission to work outside of the moratorium timeframe, and they're looking at weather dependent, and it wasn't such a great start this week with the torrential rain, May 5th through May 12th, but that obviously is a weather dependent, and that will result in the repair of some of the settling that's happened and a repaving of Beach Lane. Roadwide, the signs were already up down on Beach Lane announcing that this is forthcoming too, which was part of their permit for this work. Traffic safety remains a very serious concern for folks living along the roads that will now become the main thoroughfares, what we used to call back roads, but I don't know if that term is accurate anymore with the volume of traffic, and that remains a concern. Also, what's been brought up at the Wayne Scott CAC was lighting on residential construction sites where no one's living, and that lighting is going on from dusk to dawn, and as I said, our code enforcement director was there and is going to look into that. Road right-of-ways, it was mentioned earlier, and I think this has become quite a serious concern across town for public safety with the ongoing issues with the public road right-of-ways being personally landscaped by private property owners, fenced in. There's a concern for overgrowth in the road right-of-ways of mature tree limbs, impacting sight lines as people try to access around corners and et cetera, and the obstructions that we've already talked about. So I think, you know, this issue is coming to the forefront across town. There were some questions on folks who voluntarily weed on the green, the Wayne Scott Green. The gravel path is getting impacted by weeds. They're growing up between the small gravel, and it's impossible for them to hand weed that. So they were looking on some guidance of some organic solutions that may come along, and I'll consult with land management on that. I've talked to you, Ian, on some best practices for some organics on that, because those are ADA compliant paths, and any type of weeds growing up could be obstructive to folks that need those paths.
Yeah, and that came up in the management plan when we installed that years ago. Former council member put that up. There were different options in there, but when it's a stone dust path, the long-term maintenance of it becomes challenging.
And we're at that point.
We're at that point right
Yeah.
now, yeah.
Switching to the New York State grant, that's the $600,000 Montauk Resiliency Grant. The RFP was put out last week, and so the steering committee continues to meet. We're developing a survey for looking for committee members for an advisory committee that's to be formed under that grant, and moving that grant process along to develop resiliency, not in the first layer of response in a disaster. That is up to the first responders, et cetera, to get people safe, secure, lights and water running. But we're looking at the longer term picture of how to get the businesses in that downtown district up and running again. If they need to have a site plan review, do we have site plan prior, approved site plans prior, so that that process can get speeded up. So we're looking for the consultants to work on that, but the committee itself also is doing deep dives in that area. And it's a great committee, and it includes not only the Chamber of Commerce, but also the Nature Conservancy working together, and Sam Klein. I cannot say enough about Sam and how awesome she is with guiding these grants. She's usually ahead of us, and we all think we're so smart, about 10 steps on the next steps on that. So that's coming along really well. On the Sustainability Committee, the new backyard compost program, which is moving the compost program from a drop-off type program to educating folks on how to do composting at home. And we'll be offering some assistance with the bins that are available, et cetera. That's going to be rolling out in the next couple of weeks. I want to ask folks to consider using town garbage cans located on town properties only for garbage that maybe they bring in a lunch or something for those uses. But please, it is illegal to dump your household garbage commercial into any of our town garbage receptacles, and we will look to issue summonses if we're able to determine who that is.
We actually did that yesterday.
Well, that's why I'm bringing it up.
Thank you very much.
Funny that you say that.
Here we go.
So if we're able to determine your garbage, where it came from, and in many cases we certainly are, then you will be receiving a visit from code enforcement. These garbage cans are for a certain type of use and not for a place to take your household garbage bags and dump them. And if those cans are full, please consider carrying something home. To that end, we have instituted a carry-in, carry-out pilot at Sammy's Beach. And so I wanted to bring some public attention to that. If you walk your dog up there and you're a being responsible dog owner by picking up the poop, it is not responsible to just leave it in the parking lot or ignore the very clearly marked sign about the carry-in, carry-out. On some of our town beaches, we are looking to change some of the ideas that it's okay to leave your garbage. The cans will be provided where you could just bring it home and get it out of the system and into your household garbage and have it processed that way. You brought it there, please bring it back out when you leave. And that is happening at Sammy's Beach. I want to just issue a thanks to the, well, before I do that, I want to just mention that the Ditch Plains dune restoration is still in the hands of the state DEC, and we're awaiting communications from the DEC on that project. It is anticipated to begin off-season as soon as the season ends, 2025. I also want to just personally thank the East Hampton Police Department. There's been some rallies where folks have been exercising their rights to free speech, and the police have been so wonderful making sure that folks are safe and that they're not putting themselves in jeopardy. These are completely nonviolent, respectful rallies on the folks' end, but the police department is really showing themselves in their ideas of community policing so well during these rallies, and I want to personally thank them for the work that they do. These are always added events, just like special events are added to the police department's already ongoing commitment to public safety in the town. They pop up, they don't get a lot of notice, but they show up and they take care of folks. And it's really wonderful to see our police at work. And that's what I have.
Great, thank you. Ian?
I have just a very brief liaison report. Last Wednesday, the Property Management Committee met. We started discussing a management plan for 66 Main Street in Waynescott. As everybody knows, it's a very unique, interesting property with 3 separate structures, as well as a vast open space. And so I'm just mentioning this to say that the committee's working very hard on that, but anybody in the public who has an idea of how they think that that property should be managed, I welcome all comments so we can incorporate that in. Of course, we'll have a work session dedicated to that at some point as well, but just want to put the idea out there as we just started. Ag Advisory Committee will meet this Thursday at 5 p.m. at Suite 111A at 300 Panago Place. That's near the Planning Department, Building Department, if people are unfamiliar. Not sure of the topic yet, but I imagine they will be continuing to discuss site plan review and agricultural housing. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Ian. I just have a couple of things. First of all, this week is Public Service Recognition Week, and it's a time to honor the people who keep our community strong, safe, and connected. Public service is not always easy. It takes heart, patience, and the willingness to show up for others every single day. And that is exactly what our town staff do. And we want to thank the staff for the care you bring to your work and for the way you look out for this town and for one another. CPF. So I got an email the other day, and it turns out for March 2025, we got the second largest CPF check since the program's inception. We received a check for $7,408,855.66, and that was for 1 month. The largest was in May of 2021, and that check was for $7,495,855.60. The difference is just under $87,000. So it was, and that was May 2021 was during the whole, we were still experiencing the real estate market kind of going sideways during COVID. Last night, the East Hampton Sag Harbor CAC met. We had Captain Greg Martin with us because the committee had wanted to talk about e-bikes because they are creating an issue on North Main Street, in particular, folks riding on the sidewalk. And the East Hampton Town Police Department has had this effort going. If you remember, they were here a year ago when we did that public safety work session, but they've been providing flyers and press releases, going out door to door, North Main Street, in commercial areas. They've covered Amagansett, and they're headed out to Montauk to meet with store owners and managers to explain what the rules are, because the New York State vehicle and traffic law has been evolving as these bikes have become more prolific. They wanted to remind folks that you need to be 16 to ride an e-bike. 16 and 17-year-olds need to wear a helmet. To be classified as an e-bike, it has to have pedals. Otherwise, if there's a motor with no pedals, they have to follow motor vehicle laws. We don't allow e-bikes on sidewalks, and that's the big education piece. So what the PD has been doing, and it's been spearheaded by Captain Martin, is these press releases and flyers that they've created. They've sent them to all of the East End town school superintendents and asked them to push it out on their, have they been getting it from your?
They went out today to Springs,
Awesome.
All Springs, I believe in the parent portals.
Yeah.
So All Springs in English and Spanish got flyers on that today.
They're reaching out to the clericus. I would like to recommend that we print copies and ask our local food pantries to distribute them. Maybe they all do it on the same week to get that out. PD is working on verbiage for signs in those areas where it's most problematic. So it was a really healthy discussion. Committee was really grateful that so much time and care and consideration has gone into this effort and that all of their questions were answered. And that was really the bulk of our discussion. Captain Martin was with us for about an hour going through it all. And so that's what I have in my liaison report for today. And I think we've got quite a few resolutions. Tom, if you want to start us off.
2025-684 is a resolution and order after public hearing. This is for the construction improvement to the sanitation department, as mentioned earlier, estimating a maximum cost of $250,000 to, sorry, I apologize, I missed a section there. Part is to the construct improvements to the sanitation department building for $250,000. Then there is acquiring of a trommel, which is a material sorter, an estimated cost of $445,000. The acquisition of radiological detectors, an estimated cost of $91,500. The construction of drainage improvements to the sanitation building, an estimated cost of $300,000. Total cost of $1,086,500. Order the district shall make a careful estimate of the expense of the foregoing items, and with the assistance of the town attorney shall prepare proposed contract, therefore, which estimate and the proposed contract shall be presented to the town board as soon as possible, and is hereby ordered that the expense of the foregoing items shall be financed at the issuance of bonds of the town in the principal amount not to exceed $1,086,500, and the costs thereof, including the payment of principal of and interest on said bonds, shall be paid by the levy and collection of assessments for several lots and parcels of land within the district, and on an ad valorem basis in the same manner and at the same time as other town charges. Hereby further ordered that the town clerk record or cause to be recorded a certified copy of this resolution and order after public hearing in the office of the clerk of Suffolk County within 10 days after adoption thereof.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 2025-685 is a bond resolution. Bond resolution of the town of East Hampton, New York, adopted May 1st, 2025, appropriating $1,086,500 for the increase and improvement of facilities of the East Hampton Garbage and Refuse District, and authorizing the issuance of bonds of said town in the principal amount of said not to exceed $1,086,500 to finance said appropriation.
Second.
Carol, just questioned, should that say May 6th in the headline? It says the bond resolution of the adopted May 1.
May 6th.
That should be May 6th.
So, roll call as adopted. As adopted, sorry.
Yes, please.
Aye.
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 Thank you. 686 is to authorize a transfer from the YMCA reserve account, moving the amount of $1,040 from appropriation reserves to increase building improvements to the rec center in the amount of $1,040.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
2025-687 is for the Wellness 60 Plus May drawing and painting instruction, whereas Kate Goldman and Teresa Lawler, both members of the Hampton Arts Council, have agreed to offer art instruction at the Senior Center Springs Fireplace as part of the Wellness 60 Plus program for the month of May, at a cost to the town not to exceed $200.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I'm glad to offer Resolution 2024-688. This is a accept a donation of a memorial bench, a gift from Joan Hegner. Where is Miss Hegner? Would like to donate a memorial bench as a gift to the town of East Hampton in memory of her husband, Raymond Hegner, to be placed in front of 729 Montauk Highway, Montauk. The town of East Hampton hereby gratefully accepts the donation by Joan Hegner to the town of East Hampton.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. 689 is authorization to take drone exam to Michael Jaron, who is an employee in the Land Acquisition and Management Department. This cost is not to exceed $175.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I have Resolution 690, and this is a provisional appointment to Principal Planner for Sarah Lewis. Resolved that Sarah Lewis be and is hereby appointed on a provisional basis to full-time position of Principal Planner in the Planning Department at the hourly rate of $39.23, grade 32 starting step, which is $81,592.37 annual for a 40-hour work week effective May 27, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution 691 is appoint temporary office assistant in the building department. Resolved that Daisy Rales be and is hereby appointed to the position of temporary office assistant in the building department at the hourly rate of $25.05 to be paid biweekly for a 90-day period beginning May 12th, 2025 and ending on August 10th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 692 is to approve, approval to issue check special event fee refund to Ross School, whereas Ross School is a nonprofit 501c3 and has requested a refund of such fees. Resolved that the town clerk be authorized to issue a refund check in the amount of $200 for the application fee and $250 for the permit fee to Ross School.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 693 is to authorize payment to Cintas, and this is resolved that the town will pay an outstanding 2024 invoice in the amount of $29.04.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 2025-694 is to adopt a local law amending Chapter 62 of Civil Enforcement and Administrative Adjudication. The town board held a public hearing on March 20th to consider the local law. After considering the proposed amendments to the local law, and there was no public comments at the time of the hearing, the town board believes that the adoption of the proposed amendments to the local law is in the best interest of the town. Be it resolved that the proposed amendments to the local law are hereby adopted, and the full text as follows.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 2025-695 is to amend the bond $750,000 for additional navigation project Lake Montauk. This is what Councilman Lees discussed, how originally the Army Corps had a cost estimate of $7,274,000. Now they believe that that project may be closer to $11.1 million. So it's necessary to amend the bond from $750,000 to $1,111,000. $1,111,000.
There's a typo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some things.
$1,111,111.
Okay, sorry.
Second.
I have a roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Resolution 2025-696 is to appoint temporary office assistant in the Human Resources Department, Catherine Orlana, and at the hourly rate of $25.05 for a 90-day pay period beginning May 19th, ending August 17th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
697 is to accept a proposal for the annual update of capital assets for 2024. Consultant shall be paid a total amount not to exceed $1,250.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
698 is a retroactive approval for community project funding for the fiscal 26 submission. And the town is eligible to submit an application to Congressman LaLota's community project funding requests for fiscal year 26 opportunity. And we didn't have a board meeting prior to the due date, so this is retroactive.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
699 is to amend Resolution 2025-280, and this is to correct the date for training.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We got additional
Sorry,
resolutions.
yes. I have,
Tom, I think, is the first one.
Tom's got Tom, 700.
I did not get in my copy. I apologize, guys. Thank you. Resolution 700, be it resolved, the town board directs the budget office to make the following modification for the cost associated with the rental of a grinder, sanitation department, while emergency repairs are aboard and town equipment. It's a cost to the town not to exceed $60,000.
Second.
All in favor?
I have Resolution 701. This is the appoint part-time to seasonal lifeguards in the Recreation Department for May 2025, effective May 18th, 2025. Names and positions listed below.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I have 702. This is authorize a CPF Water Quality Award for round 1 2025 to Clear Bay Environmental. This is for a design and installation of an enhanced wetland restoration project at headwaters of Hall Creek. This is a project type of a non-point source pollution reduction habitat restoration. The funding award is $91,328.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I have 703. This is authorize a CPF Water Quality Award for round 1 2025 for treescape at East Hampton condos. And this was for wastewater treatment improvement for 24 units on the properties for a total flow of 7,200 gallons a day. The funding award is $327,273.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 704 is authorize a CPF Water Quality Award for round 1 2025. This is for the Springs General Store. And this was for an installation of an IA upgrade to serve the Springs General Store with a flow rate of 526 gallons per day to replace an existing conventional septic system. This is a wastewater treatment improvement. The funding was $131,567.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
705 is authorize a CPF Water Quality Award for round 1 2025 for South Fork Sea Farmers. And this was to support a oyster reef building project in Thermal Harbor for a shell, washer, conveyor, and tumbler. The amount of cost was $46,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 706 is authorize a CPF Water Quality Award for round 1 2025 for the Sag Harbor Sewer Shed L Expansion Engineering. And again, this is for the project sponsor was the Village of Sag Harbor for engineering and design costs associated with this for the wastewater treatment improvement, which was funding award is $31,900.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I want to make a motion to withdraw 707.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have resolution, do you have another one, Dave?
No, I do not. I just got ahead of myself.
I have resolution 708, and this is to amend the 2025 CSEA Schedule A, add Administrative Assistant 2, whereas the town has requested that the title of Administrative Assistant 2 be added to the CSEA Schedule A, and this request has been reviewed and has reviewed this request with the president of the CSEA bargaining unit. Resolved that the CSEA Schedule A is hereby amended to reflect the addition of Administrative Assistant 2 on grade 30, starting step in 2025 is $36.28 per hour with a schedule of a 40-hour work week effective May 7th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 709, and this is a notice of public hearing to consider amending Article 11 of Chapter 255, Extend Pilot Program for Outdoor Dining. Be it resolved that the town board will hold a public meeting on June 5th, 2025 at 6 p.m. at East Hampton Town Hall to consider amendments to a local law amending Chapter 255 zoning, Article 11, uses and dimensions to extend the outdoor dining at restaurants and outdoor seating at takeout food stores pilot program, providing for an administrative permit for the transfer of indoor restaurant and takeout seating to outdoor seating. The full text is available below.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 710 is to appoint student intern 2 to the Natural Resources Department, for Kate Branchula. This is, Kate is hereby appointed to the position of part-time student intern 2 with the Natural Resources Department at the hourly rate of $20. This is effective June 9th, 2025 through August 20th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 711 is the approval of Corey's Wave LLC seasonal permit, a seasonal event permit 2025 for surf instruction at Ditch Plains. All conditions relayed below.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Next is, you have.
I have an ID. Is it 712?
Yeah,
It's 712.
Okay, resolution 712. This is the Town of East Hampton Community Housing Fund, first-time home buyer, down payment assistant program update. This is to allocate $600,000 to be administratively based on the updated program details.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to read in resolution 713 is to adopt amendment to chapter 25 Ethics Code of, whereas the town board held a public hearing on April 17, 2025, to consider amending the East Hampton Town Code, Chapter 25, Ethics Code of, to include Community Housing Advisory Board and Water Quality Technical Analysis Committee in the definition of municipal board, allow town board members to accept tickets to certain events where attendance is in the performance of the town board members' official duties, and require advisory opinions which affect the employment of an individual employee to be included in the employee's personnel file. Be it resolved that after considering the matter and any comments of the public at the time of the hearing, the town board believes that the proposed amendment to Chapter 25 Ethics Code of the town, East Hampton Town Code, is in the best interest of the residents of the town. Full change listed below.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
Oh,
Roll call?
Yeah, we'll move for discussion. This one, this includes the tickets.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, for that reason, I'd mentioned the thing, I was very much of the mind that there should be a $75 cap previously on what the ticket is. I know it's gone higher than that. I don't agree with that. So as such, I will not be voting with this amendment.
Yeah, I'm going to abstain from the vote. I'm largely in favor of everything here, and I'm okay with the ticket cost, but just based on the comments that we received at the public hearing, I'm going to abstain because I'm largely in favor, but there's one piece I've got questions about.
Carol, if you could please do a roll call?
Nay.
Aye.
aye.
Abstain?
Aye.
Resolution 714, this is to amend the fund line for the acquisition of 82 Bow Oarsman Road. This is a walk-on resolution. It's just to amend the fund line for the acquisition of 82 Bow Oarsman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 2025-715 is to amend 2025 CSA Schedule A, add Harbor Master 2 Supervisor, and this is the addition of the Harbor 2 Supervisor title at grade 34 with a 40-hour work week with the starting step hourly rate at $41.61 effective May 7th, 2025, and also the Harbor 3 title is designated for department heads, and as such, this title shall be removed from the CSEA Schedule A.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so those are all the resolutions we have. Do I have a motion to go into exec session?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for personnel, real estate, contracts, and litigation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Jason.